Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku created a new generation of symbols of peace? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. It was rare she ever got to leave her office, even at her age. Being the linchpin that held UA together was a lofty title, but it made Chio worry for the future. She wasn't getting any younger after all. That's why days where kids weren't being wheeled into her office with broken bones and cuts were something she treasured. It was those days she went for a nice quiet walk, away from the bustle. It did her health good as well, and it was nice getting away from the smell of antiseptic. That's why she was irked when she heard loud bangs and grunts just further up the forest path. It was a new route to her, but if this was the norm she wouldn't be coming back. Continuing on, she considered that she could be walking into a villain operation. She would keep quiet just in case, but if the worst came around she had dozens of pro heroes on speed dial. But instead of finding a villain operation, she found a teenage boy in a stream lifting a boulder over his head. Immediately she deduced several things: strength quirk, hyper muscle definition in line with adults in their prime, probably related to quirk, around 15 years old. Without effort, the boy yelled and threw the boulder away. He then went up to another one and punched it clear out the water. His knuckles were bleeding. "Excuse me," she said, startling him. "Do you make it a habit to cause such a ruckus?" He started stuttering and ran a hand through his damp green hair. Nobody ever comes here, so I? Come over here." The boy did as he was told, but approached slowly, putting far more effort into walking than necessary. Blood dripped from his knuckles. "You training to be a hero, young one?" "Not exactly." "Oh, so, you were demolishing the local scenery for no reason then?" He nervously chuckled. "Well, the stream's been blocked for a while now. I thought I could kill two birds with one stone." There was indeed a large dam of rocks that looked to have come off the nearby hill. There were still hundreds more, but there was a steady trickle of water coming out from beneath. "And you never thought to protect yourself?" He looked confused until she signaled to his hands. He looked at the flayed skin in shock. "Give me your hand." When she brushed his skin, he flinched back, eyes darting left and right. "Strange. I want to tend to those wounds. If you will let me." He cradled the hand she touched, backing up further. "I'm fine. Thank you, but I'm fine." His fingers twitched. She would have to coax this one out. And there she was enjoying a day without difficult patience. "If you say so, but I could have you fixed up in a jiffy. I am recovery girl after all." His eyes widened. "Recovery girl?" "That's right. 1 second and you will be all fixed up. You won't notice it." He came closer and held his hands out. She smiled and took hold of them. They tensed but didn't curl. Chio channeled her quirk and gave his left a quick peck, making the skin on both hands quickly knit together, good as new. As soon as she finished and let go, he retreated again. "Better." "Yeah, thanks." The birds tweeted overhead as a gust rustled the leaves. "What is your name?" "Oh, sorry. It's Midoriya Izuku, ma'am." "Well, it's nice to meet you, Midoriya-kun." She noticed a nearby log, shuffled over to it, and took a seat. Her knees were killing her. "Mind if I ask a question, Midoriya-kun?" He shook his head. "If you aren't here to train, then what is your exact purpose?" He seemed to debate to himself, looking down at his hands. I want to control my quirk. It's dangerous and I can't turn it off." "So you thought you could wear it down?" "Kind of. Maybe. Nothing's worked. I only ever seem to get out of breath." "A quirk without an off switch?" "Not uncommon. The genetic mutations made by quirks certainly couldn't be reversed, but even mutated people required effort to use their quirks. Simply keeping it on wasn't an option." "Yours is a strength quirk, I assume?" "It is." "Any specifics? How do your parents' quirks work?" "Well, my mother can pull small objects while my dad can breath fire." "He's not around though." "A unique quirk then." Again, not unheard of, but it hadn't happened in a couple of generations. Unless the father wasn't who Midoriya thought it was, but she would keep those comments to herself. Any sensations linked to your power? Sometimes it feels like electricity running through me, but I can never pin it down. So you have tried suppressing it then? Ever thought about simply turning it down? He froze, his gaze unfocused. Can't been done. Too strong, he muttered. Midoriya-kun, what are you hoping to achieve? She asked. Your goals, dreams. What's driving you? I just don't want to hurt people anymore. It had happened in the past. Whatever he did affected him at a psychological level. Like usual, she wanted to help, her inner doctor guiding her next words. Then I shall help you, Midoriya-kun. No, I couldn't. You're busy at you. That I am, she agreed, but like today I have time off every now and then. I am sure I can figure out your quirk and how to control it. I am a doctor after all, and that makes me a scientist too. I don't want to be a burden. She smiled. I'll find a way to work you around my schedule. But, he sighed. Okay. Chio got off the log and reached into her bag. She pulled out a syringe, which Midoriya stared at. What's that for? He asked nervously. I want a blood sample so I can learn about your quirk. Your previous doctor seems to have neglected this. I'm not very good with needles. Nobody is, dearie. You'd be surprised by how much power loader screams. She flicked the syringe. Now, come closer. I'm home, Izuku said as he took his shoes off. There was no reply, but there was a shifting glow coming from the living room. The TV was on at least. Slowly, he put his bag on top of the shoe rack and walked in. The news was on, volume low, and the lamp that they had owned since forever shone in the corner. And there, curled up on the floor, covered by a blanket, was his mother. They slept the same, he noticed, cocooned in their sheets. He smiled fondly and turned to the kitchen, finding a plate of katsudon on the counter. His stomach rumbled and he grimaced. Carefully, he peeled the foil off the bowl and placed it into the microwave, making sure not to clang about too much. After turning it on, a gentle hum filled the room, mixed with his mother's soft breaths and the whispering of the TV. Izuku saw that All Might was in town and had taken down a slime villain by capturing him in an empty bottle. The power of recycling, he said in his booming voice, following it with his trademark laugh. Izuku couldn't help but smile. A hurried interview followed, where All Might was quick to get away. Izuku could understand that. He wouldn't want to be hounded by reporters wherever he went either. There was one thing that Izuku noticed though, steam. It seemed to be rising from his shoulders just before he dashed away. Strange. He'd have to look up the fan boards tomorrow. Tonight he just wanted to sleep. Today had been a roller coaster. He still felt the sting of the needle in his upper arm, and he shivered at the memory of Recovery Girl's shadowed face as she raised the needle. And that smile. He shivered again. A ding came from the microwave. Thankfully his mother didn't wake up. As he dug in, he remembered how lucky he was to meet Recovery Girl. She managed to bring a bit of hope to him, a warmth in his chest. A passion to be what he always wanted to be, a hero. Most importantly though, he could be normal. Flashes of memories came and his gut twisted. His quirk didn't have any happy memories to it. Tears, screams, murmurs. They all swirled around his head. He gripped his chopsticks so tight they cracked and cut his hand. The sting drew him to the blood trickling down his palm, and the pain was suddenly real, bare before the fire in his heart. He was tired of it. Tired of being scared. Tired of caging himself. Tired of thinking in circles. Of putting himself down. Of being alone. But now he had a chance to become. To be something instead of a phantom. He could be a hero. He will be a hero. He clenched his injured hand. He would make his mother proud. Setting his alarm half an hour earlier wasn't a good idea. There was something in his body that didn't agree with the slight shift in time. His eyes were blurry, his muscles were aching, and he felt like he was moving through tar. The smile on his mother's face would be worth it, he hoped. He shuffled his way to the kitchen and, very slowly, started to brew some coffee. If his timing was right, her alarm would go off just before it was ready. She was still curled up on the futon, the TV still on. He would have turned it off, but they'd gone through a lot of remotes before deciding it was best if he left the thing alone. Same thing with chopsticks, a tiny slip in focus and they'd shatter. Eventually they kept a bunch of cheap disposable ones in the drawer. It was inconvenient at times, but it was the life he had to get used to. His early years were full of breaking things: school chairs, door handles, playground equipment. In the end he just left it all alone. He stopped going out to play. He stopped watching TV, stopped using the computer after he jabbed a hole through the keyboard. All he had left was a specially reinforced pen and his books. Books were hard for him to destroy, so they were the only thing he let himself have. His mother started him on a journal at first and encouraged him to get out into the world. It was a nice idea, but when she shooed him out of the door, he just walked around aimlessly until he happened upon a hero in battle with a villain. Everyone was watching, oohing and eyeing, but Izuku felt like the only one who saw it. Every twitch of muscle, every minuscule detail of the fight. Before he knew it, he was mumbling his thoughts aloud and quickly writing in his journal. It was later named his hero notebook. The characters were messy, and the drawings were far from proportional, but as a 7-year-old he took his first steps towards his passion, heroes. After that he'd take walks daily, checking all the hotspots. When he couldn't go outside, he'd ask his mother to turn on the news. Day by day he filled his book, showing it to his mother when it was done. It wasn't exactly what she had been expecting, and she scolded him for doing something so dangerous. The day after she gave him another notebook with a tap on the head to be more careful. He flinched at the touch. His mother looked upset at that. As the years went on, his love for heroes never faded. It was his only hobby after all, and he discovered he was extremely observant. Freakishly so. Apparently not everyone could see the precise notes he took down in action. At least his drawings had got better, something his mother always pointed out. You should be a mangaka. With his hope of being a hero fading, he was seriously considering it. Although slaving away in a stuffy office didn't sound that attractive. But that was then. Today was different. Fresh. The day before had been too much for him. After the regular prodding from Kaken, a rare break of a pencil, a splinter hitting some girl in the eye, and him accidentally throwing his table through the window trying to apologize, he wanted to scream. So he went to the forest, unleashed his strength, and went wild. Then Recovery Girl showed up. It was extremely embarrassing to be caught, but it turned out for the better. He could only hope she would contact him today. He was anxious to get started. A loud blaring alarm startled him. It was his mother's phone. Why was it so loud? His own muddled head couldn't take it. Slowly the cover shifted, and his mother's hand snaked its way out to turn off the alarm. There was groaning, more shifting, and ever so slowly she untangled herself from the sheets. Izuku got to work finishing off the coffee, carefully getting her favorite mug and filling it with a fresh brew. She sniffed the air as she rubbed her eyes. Lethargically she stood, shuffling her way over to the kitchen counter. "Good morning, Mum," Izuku said with a smile. His voice was a bit hoarse from all the screaming he did yesterday. She mumbled and followed the scent of coffee. She picked up the mug and brought it to her lips. "It's hot," Izuku warned. She took a sip anyway. Almost instantly she perked up, looking around the room as if she just opened her eyes. She looked surprised to see him. "Izuku!" She blinked. "Izuku! Good morning!" She moved close for a hug and Izuku shuffled back, smiling nervously. His mother's cheer faded a bit. "When did you get back? And where were you?" "I was worried sick." "Late doesn't mean past 9. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. "It was around 10, but don't worry, I was safe. In fact, something great happened." "Oh, what was it?" It was amazing how she could switch from one mood to another. "I found a doctor. She said she could help me with my quirk." She smiled. "That sounds great." She took a sip of coffee and a curious frown curled her brow. "It isn't illegal, is it?" He waved his hands in front of him. "No. It's all safe. It's a pro-hero who's offered to help." As he went over what happened, the fact he met Recovery Girl made his mother squeal. She always liked the hero as a kid, and his new schedule the time passed quickly. His mother was elated at the news, happy that he could work towards some form of normality. Her enthusiasm was infectious and he found himself more excited than he was last night. They talked about the news over breakfast. Well, Izuku fawned over All Might coming to town and his mother listening with a small smile on her face. Just before he was about to leave for school, he turned to his mother. "Mum, I'll get better." "What are you talking about? You're not sick." But I'm going to get better. I'll fix my quirk and I'll make you proud." "Aizu." He shut the door, clutching a hand over his chest. "I promise you, Ma. I'll do it. For once, I'll fix everything." School was the same as usual. He avoided people in the corridor and did his best to be invisible. Apparently, everyone heard about his antics yesterday and whispered as he passed, some laughing. One guy even tried shoulder barging him, only to end up flat on his back with Izuku apologizing and backing away quickly. When he got in the classroom, he noticed his desk was still gone. When the teacher showed up, he was told the replacement would come tomorrow, and for the rest of the day he had to make do without. So he spent the school day riding on his lap, his neck aching. On top of that, the girl and her friends were giving him looks, flinching when he met their eyes. He almost snapped another pencil. Girls made him anxious to begin with. As the seconds and the hours ticked by, as lunch passed agonizingly slow, Izuku waited for a message to come through. When the final bell rang and Izuku was halfway home, covered in his usual scorch marks, he realized Recovery Girl didn't have time for him. He knew she had other duties far more important than himself, but it still hurt. Like taking your first step right onto a plug. He thought about going back to the river to train, but decided against it. Training under supervision would be better than punching rocks all afternoon, and he didn't want to lose his knuckle skin again. It stung. Instead, on the walk home, he did what he did best, think. In circles. Sometimes he was pretty sure it bordered on neurotic. He thought about the current that ran through him. It was always on, but he could never feel the switch. Like water falling from an invisible tap. He didn't even notice the flow within him unless he thought about it, and even then he didn't quite feel it. Like blood in people's veins. The only true feedback he got from his current was the little sparks that came from his body. It wasn't electricity, because it never sought itself to anything. Merely visual feedback? He murmured and mumbled, a finger to his chin. He was passing through a local shopping district when it happened. The ground shook. An undeniable sound of crumbling as brick smashed against brick. Dust billowed out into the streets. People screamed. Izuku was on his hands and knees, coughing. His hair was white with dust. He rubbed his eyes with his sleeve, vaguely noting that he just put more dust on them. Slowly, he looked up, and through his blurry eyes he could see the silhouette of a man standing atop some rubble. Light shined upon his massive, muscular form. His hands went to his hips. The pose. The hair. All Might? The man laughed. But it wasn't the jovial laugh Izuku was expecting. It was rough, coarse, and sickening. Whoever was standing on that rubble wasn't the #1 hero. Izuku then realized it was a villain. A villain only a few feet away. He needed to run. He needed to hide. But his legs wouldn't move. His hands were shaking. He watched with wide eyes as the villain walked up to another building and placed his hands. Screams and a crash and a boom. Dust flooded the district, settling in the air like a veil. The villain laughed again. "Look at me, everyone. Where were the heroes? Look at me in awe. See the prime evolution of man." Izuku still couldn't see the villain's face. "You are ants scurrying beneath me, running scared as I crush your little nests." The villain turned. Huh. Even in all the chaos, Izuku could hear it too, a grunt of pain. A woman had managed to partway get herself out the rubble. Everything below her shoulders were still trapped. She reached out towards the villain. Please," she panted, "please help me." "Help you?" He threw his head back and laughed. "And why would I do that?" he asked, amused. "If you can't help yourself, then what good are you?" He bent over her. "You know what I'll do instead?" He raised a hand. "I'll put you out of your misery." The world slowed. Where were the heroes? The hand went down. Where were the heroes? The woman covered her face, screaming. Where were the heroes? Just before the hand touched, Izuku pushed. He was there in an instant, knocking himself into the villain, who flew down the street. Izuku was left on the rubble, next to the woman who was looking at him with wide eyes. How did he get there? Why was he there? All he could manage was a shaky smile as tears ran down his face. He faced the woman, green sparks flying from his legs. "It's okay," he said, as if to assure himself. "I'm here." The woman gasped and opened her mouth. "You damned brat. You dare." The villain stalked through the dusty veil. As he approached, Izuku realized how big the guy was. He was pretty sure the guy was even taller than All Might. Now that Izuku could see the fury on his face, he had to ask himself again. Why was he here? "I will crush you." Where were the heroes? The man set off in a sprint, and Izuku gulped. He looked for a way to escape, then his eyes fell on the woman by his side. In his fear, he forgot. It wasn't just him in danger. He didn't know why, but he stood his ground on shaky legs, raising his fists in a sloppy guard. The villain barreled towards him, murderous gaze locked onto his. There were no heroes, so he would have to do. The villain came into striking distance. Izuku dug his feet into the ground. The villain raised his hands. "Die!" Izuku yelled and threw his leg up. The bricks around his feet rocketed into the air, peppering the villain's body. He stumbled. Izuku dashed forward, pulling his fist back. Gritting his teeth, he closed his eyes and threw his fist. A massive hand clamped around his wrist. Startled, Izuku opened his eyes. The world rushed by in a blur and his back collided with something hard. It took him a second to realize he'd been thrown against a wall. The pain was less than he expected. A perk of his quirk. He remembered a villain was trying to kill him. He looked up and saw the villain walking towards him. Izuku stood and raised his arms. He just had to hold him off until the heroes showed. Hopefully it wouldn't be long. He was shaking again. Violently. His right arm wouldn't stop moving, jerking violently in all directions. The villain smiled. "Do you feel it, brat? That's my quirk, seismic vibration. Whatever I touch with my hands is subjected to my tremendous power." So it was intense vibrations. If it was contact-based, then that filtered in a number of factors. Contact length probably increased the power of the tremors. Maybe even the duration. It was only on him for a split second, so maybe a shadow loomed over him. Izuku saw the muscles in the man's pronounced right shoulder twitch. A punch. Izuku leapt to the side and countered with a haymaker of his own. "Too slow," the villain shouted as he dashed into Izuku's range. He was close enough that Izuku only ended up hitting with his bicep. Hands covered his head and face. "Now prepare to have your brains shook into mush." Izuku closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." There was a massive gust of wind and Izuku fell to the ground. After a few seconds he realized his brain wasn't mush and his arm wasn't spasming. He opened his eyes. The villain was on the floor, unconscious. Above him stood the number one hero, All Might. Izuku's eyes watered. "Don't worry. Because I am here." He looked around. It's pretty dusty." He swung his arms up and a second later all the dust rose up from the street, dispersing into the sky. Izuku forgot it was sunny today. "All Might." The hero turned to him and smiled. "Are you okay, young one?" He wasn't. The situation was all crashing down on him. So he smiled, even as he knew his face showed his despair. "I'm fine." All Might came to him and kneeled. "It was brave what you did. The sign of a true hero. Even now you're smiling." He stood. "You remind me of myself when I was your age." He laughed into the sky. "All Might, I'm okay. There's a woman stuck over there. Help her first." All Might stopped laughing and gave Izuku an intense look. As soon as it came, it was gone. "You have a good point, young one. Stay here, other heroes will be here soon." As All Might walked away, Izuku heard him say something else. A hero indeed. After that, people were taken away in ambulances, wounds were dressed, heroes and officers making sure everyone was all right. Since the dust was so thick, no one saw Izuku's fight against the villain, so he was treated like another victim. The phone call with his mother was hectic. She was crying, he was crying. Both hysterical messes. When he put the phone down, he looked across the street. There, the woman from before was having a cut on her head tended to. They caught each other's eyes and she smiled. Before she was put in the back of the ambulance, he saw her mouth some words. "Thank you." His heart soared. Then he got a call from Recovery Girl. His heart dropped into his stomach. Apparently he was on the news, and she had a few choice words to say to him. After her tirade was over, and Izuku's ear was ringing, she finished the call with a clipped, "See you tomorrow." If it was his choice, he would sleep tomorrow away. Maybe the whole week. Even a coma sounded like a good idea. All Might was dying. It was a hard pill for Yagi Toshinori to swallow, but swallow it he must. He could remember a time when All Might and Yagi Toshinori were indistinguishable. The two would carry the same burden, spout the same lines, save the same people. And they would both smile. Then that BSTRD tore up his insides. What came after was a slow and painful process. Week after week, he was pulled in two until he finally ripped. It got harder to smile at the mirror when a skeleton stared back. It got harder to smile when he swallowed the blood erupting from his stomach. It got harder to smile when he lied to the world. Having two forms of such extremes was enough to shatter him in two. All Might could save hundreds at a time, change the weather with a single punch, and towered over every person in the world. Yagi Toshinori could do nothing. He couldn't run, he couldn't fight. He couldn't even go shopping without having to put his bags down twice. Forgetting his pills, eating hard food, breathing in too much dust, all of it could kill him, or at least put him down for a week or two. Even when his master died, he never felt so mortal. It was then he realized that he started to believe in his own lies. The DMN smile. The smile that illuminated the world, that told everyone that they were going to be fine. The smile that made him invincible. And he, the fool that he was, started to believe it himself. Which only made it harder when he found himself on death's doorstep, a place he never truly left. He felt like he was sitting there in a neatly bowed package, just waiting for death to take a peek and notice. Maybe that's why he stopped smiling. In his younger days, despite his quirklessness, he was quite popular for his cheery attitude. People used to call it infectious, something to look forward to every day. That only made him beam more. The fact he was helping people with such a simple act made his heroic dreams that much more real. Nowadays, though, he never felt the need. Sure, All Might did, but Yagi Toshinori just found it tiring. He was the great pretender, and his act was almost at its end. That's why he needed to find a successor as soon as possible. 3 hours a day was just not enough. That left people without their symbol of hope for 21 hours. In the constant battle between good and evil, that was far too long. So he would do what his master did before him, turn to the youth. They were a generation brought up on his ideals, but finding a true hero, someone willing to shoulder the hopes and dreams of the world's people was going to be difficult. Or maybe it would have been, if Netsu hadn't given him a perfect candidate, Togata Mirio. The boy was perfect. His quirk was amazing, making him practically invincible. Combined with One for All, he would be unstoppable. He always smiled, and even gained the respect of Night Eye. Whilst he was physically amazing, it was his mental fortitude that Yagi admired. He was always willing to learn, and his dedication to mastering his quirk spoke volumes about his character. He was a boy who would never surrender in the face of defeat, yet knew when it was time to disengage. He would make a fine successor. Under his tutelage and that of Night Eye's, the boy would become the next #1 hero. Lemillion. While thinking about Togata, Yagi's mind briefly flashed to the boy he met 4 months ago. He was a tiny little thing, and extremely skittish. But even still, he stood up to a villain without fear and prioritized other people above himself. It was a simple trait, but it was the baseline of all heroics. If he hadn't already chosen Togata, that boy might have been his choice. So one day, he got Netsu to call the boy into the principal's office where he presented him with becoming the next successor of All for One. Togata took his time to answer, a small frown on his face. Isn't there anyone else? I don't mean to imply your decision-making is poor, but aren't there others more qualified than me? I'm not that special, he said. True. There are others I could pass my legacy on to, but for all their strengths, none of them have your drive, your character, replied Yagi. What makes you special is your spirit and your unbreakable will. You have faced every fall with a smile and simply decided to become stronger. For that, I can think of no one better. The boy looked stunned. You can take your time to once. I accept. Togata was looking at him, a fire in his eyes and a determined smile on his face. He stood, only to bow low to the floor. I humbly accept your offer. I will become the next successor of One for All. For the first time in a long time, Yagi smiled. Could eat this. Nothing. Absolutely nothing had happened. Even after a week, One for All had yet to surface in the boy, and both of them were starting to get disheartened. Togata was starting to feel that he wasn't worthy, and Yagi was worried that his fight with All for One broke more than just his body. He just didn't understand what he was doing wrong. Togata took his DNA, Yagi wanted the torch to be passed, and he was feeling weaker with each passing day. All of them were signatures of him passing his quirk on. The only person he could turn to help was Shizenji-san. He only hoped she was in her office which, strangely, was frequently empty after school. When he knocked, however, a reply came from inside and he let himself into the nurse's office. Shizenji herself was at the computer, squinting at some data Yagi couldn't even begin to fathom. Good evening, Shizenji-san, he said as he closed the door. Evening, Yagi-kun. What brings you here? She said, swiveling her chair towards him. Nedza may have told you about me passing on my quirk to a student. That he did, she affirmed. Togata Mirio, I was told. A good choice. I haven't seen him in my office in a few months. A much better track record than anyone else here. Thank you, he said, but there have been some complications. Shizenji tilted her head. One for All is not passing on. And you have done everything you should have? Yes, but it has yet to surface. I was hoping you could shed some light on it. She rubbed her chin and hummed. When I heard about Togata, I called him in for a medical and a blood test the next day. From what I found, he was completely healthy. Perhaps. She reached over and plucked a strand of hair off his head. Oh, don't be such a wuss. She put the hair underneath a machine, and with a button press it was being scanned. It's amazing what technology nowadays can do, she said. Back in my day this would have taken weeks. With a ping much like a microwave, the machine finished its scan and the hair disintegrated. The results came up on the screen. Shizenji's eyes widened. This is... Oh God, something was wrong. What is it? What's wrong? She glared at him. Although I always call you a fool, this has to be the worst thing you have ever done. Something seized his heart, threatening to shatter it like glass. Togata Mirio will never inherit One for All. Dread in his voice, he asked, why not? Because you passed it on years ago. And stop. Izuku gasped as he threw the boulder he was holding onto the embankment. Winter was closing in, and the setting sun peeked through the leaves onto the forest path. To the side, Recovery Girl was sitting on a folding chair drinking tea. Izuku wiped the sweat off his forehead and rolled his shoulders. He felt good. The past 6 months had done wonders for him. He was still a stuttering mess and avoided people like the plague, but in the forest, in the river, he felt himself. Maybe that's what Recovery Girl wanted to accomplish when she told him to go all out. At the start he suffered from several panic attacks, and for a couple of months he flinched when he caused some destruction. But now, in the confines of the canopy, he felt safe to act and move freely. There, his dreams of becoming a hero were crystallized, helped along by the cool training gear Recovery Girl got him. It was like UA's gym uniform, just without the logo. It was perfect for his training and was waterproof, making cleaning it a dream, or so his mother said. Wearing it, he already felt like he was at UA. Finishing off his stretches, he walked to Recovery Girl, who finished up her tea. Congratulations, Midoriya-kun, you've made it through stage 1, she said. I think it's safe to conclude that your quirk does not simply wear out like everyone else's. She saw his smile and matched it with her own. At least your confidence has improved. It's still, he said, rubbing the back of his head. Here's fine, but out there with all those people I still feel nervous. Especially since I started using my powers fully. I feel more dangerous than ever. Yet you don't feel as bad, do you? No, he realized, I don't. That's good. Because the next stage is going to focus on turning down that power of yours. She placed the teacup into her bag, somehow, and pressed a button on the chair, collapsing it into a tiny cube which she stored away also. Izuku was still marveled by the support course's technology. The next stage, she continued, will take place at your home. Every week I will task you with certain objectives that you must complete and report back to me. In 2 months, I will check your progress and see if you can advance to the next stage. The thought of being away from the forest for that long made his heart thump. Will you visit? Recovery Girl sighed. Unfortunately, UA is going to be busy over the winter, so I won't have the time. Ah, I see, he said disappointedly. As much as he hated to admit it, the old hero had become a crutch to him. The thought of being alone for the next portion of his training unsettled him. Don't worry, Midoriya-kun. I have faith that you will be fine. You've come too far to fail now. She was right, just as she always was. Maybe part of his training was learning to stop relying on her as much. She was clever like that. And she was right, the only way was forward. Izuku wondered if he could ever glare at a villain as well as he could an orange. It was sitting there on his bed, taunting him with the little shine it gave off. Izuku's eye twitched. This time you'll get it. He prodded it with a finger, making it rock. His eyes narrowed and his hand shot out. Smash! He cradled it in his grasp, fingers twitching, sweat dripping. His teeth were grit. Sparks flew. The orange exploded. For a second he stared at his empty, juice-covered hand. Bits of orange skin were stuck to the walls. His eye twitched again. Damn it! He fell onto his bed and screamed into his pillow. He was going insane. 20 attempts. 20. He didn't know what was more frustrating, that he couldn't do it, or the clean-up afterwards. At least he could use the washing machine now. Toning his power down to press things was easy now. Gripping things were another matter. Izuku, just what is going on in there? You're not, you know? His face lit up in a flush and he fell of his bed. No. I was just... He slid open his door, revealing his orange-juiced form. Training. She gave him a strange look, her own flush dying down. Whoa, just save it for later. We have a guest. A guest? Yes, so clean up and get changed, she said as she closed his door. A change of clothes and a face wash later, he walked into the living room to see Recovery Girl? His mother was startled by his outburst, flinching back from her conversation. Recovery Girl smiled. Good evening, Midoriya-kun. His mother looked between him and Recovery Girl, hair swishing wildly. Our Recovery Gigi girl? The old woman smiled. Midoriya Inko got stars in her eyes. Oh my. I'm not wearing makeup, I'm not dressed right, the house is a mess. She descended into mumbles. Izuku moved on, a little freaked out to see where he got his bad habit from. What are you doing here? He asked. Surely you haven't forgotten? It's time to move on to the final step. She shuffled to the door and picked up a box on top of the shoe rack. I was very impressed when I read your reports, so think of this as a gift as well as a training aid. She placed the box on top of the living room table and took off the lid. What came out made his mother stop mumbling. A pair of long gray ears twitched in the air and, slowly, a rabbit's head came into view. Its little nose sniffed the air as its big eyes looked around the room. A rabbit? Izuku stammered. Why don't you help her out of the box, Midoriya-kun? He gazed at the innocent creature. Are you sure? He asked uncertainly. I don't want to hurt it. He exploded oranges with the slightest pressure. A rabbit was a bit more durable, but still. I believe in you, Midoriya-kun. I wouldn't be here if I did not think you could do it. His mother watched on with a concerned frown, but did not speak. Slowly, his hands came up, and he went to grab the rabbit. It scurried away from him, pawing at the far edge of the box. Izuku paused. It's okay, he whispered and reached further, leaning over the table. I won't hurt you. I promise. Gently still, he moved, and when the rabbit stopped trying to escape, he took a gentle hold of it. It shook in his hands, so he brought it closer to his chest, hugging it against his warmth. Ever so slowly, It settled against him and he smiled. It seems people aren't the only things you want to save. It seems instinct still drives you a little. Recovery Girl's voice brought his focus back to the room. His mother had tears in her eyes whilst Recovery Girl smiled at him. It was then he noticed what he did. He was holding the rabbit in his hands. The same hands which used to break anything they touched. The same hands that could send boulders flying. The same hands that now cradled such a delicate creature. Its fur was much like its ears, gray. Not a striking color, but he liked its simplicity. You should give her a name. A name? He wasn't any good at those. In his notes he kept things simple, like, hero name costume MK2. The rabbit didn't look like she wanted anything flashy. At least that's what he got from her eyes. How about Usagi? He propositioned hopefully. The blank looks he got back weren't very encouraging. Chio never had any children, but she was sure the pride she was feeling for Midoriya was what parents would feel for their own. He had changed immensely from the timid boy she once knew. Sure, his social skills could use some work, but the confidence in his own body was completely different. She could happily say that her therapy worked. And hopefully his time at UA would fix that stammer of his. When he told her about his plans to become a hero, the first thing she felt was concern. The boy didn't know about the days before All Might. No one did, except the older generation who would rather not talk about it. Back in the day, heroes were just as likely to die as civilians. The fights were bloody, and one side usually walked away while the other lay motionless. They didn't have the capability of permanently incarcerating quirk users. She had to remind herself that it was the past. The world of light All Might created was a stark contrast to those dark days. If they were trying to climb out of the pit of despair, then All Might was the one who grabbed their hand and dragged them out of it. He single-handedly held the world in a state of peace. And Midoriya would be the one to take his place. After she found out the source of his power, she firmly believed that the boy should follow his own path, without being influenced by his unknown legacy. It was for the same reason she advised Yagi stayed away from the boy and his mother. The child didn't need his emotions messed with when he was so close to recovery. Apparently, though, being a selfless fool ran in his blood and he wanted to follow the hero's life. It was the reason why he pushed himself so hard with his training, because he didn't want to hurt anyone else with his quirk. Seeing as he could handle a rabbit fine, she had no worries when it came to another person. This was because she used imaging through his training. Each stage and exercise had a clear object to do it upon. Full power was smashing boulders. No power was holding a rabbit. It played on his instinctual nature, something she found out about after his encounter with the villain. He wanted to help, so his body moved before he even knew it. Then he wanted to survive. First came flight, but his desire to save forced him to fight. At that point, it ramped his power up to full in order to defend himself. The images, she hoped, would override these instinctual tendencies. Over the next few weeks, she regularly visited the Midoriya home. It was nice being in a lived-in space. Her own apartment was just a place she would sleep. Her office at UA was where she lived. Of course, she wouldn't trade her job for the world. Being a doctor was her calling, but she was getting too old for the demanding job. Unfortunately, there had yet to be a miracle fix quirk like hers. Midoriya-kun's mother was one of the nicest people she had ever met. Chio had been very flattered to be the woman's favorite hero, and after a few weeks they had become friends, trading stories over tea. The fondness in her voice when she talked about her child was unmissable. So was her sadness. It seemed empathy was something else the boy inherited. So there she was, a week before the UA entrance exams, ringing the doorbell of the Midoriya home. It would be her last visit for quite some time, and she wanted to make the most of it. Maybe even give Midoriya-kun some advice. "I'm coming," came from the other side of the door. It opened to reveal Inko, who smiled when she saw her. "Shizenji-san. So nice to see you. Come in." "Thank you, dear," Chio said as she stepped inside. "I keep saying I can get you a key cut," Inko said from the kitchen, likely preparing the evening's tea. Chio slid out of her shoes and walked into the living room. "I don't want to trouble you, Inko-san." She waved a hand in the air. "It's no trouble at all. You're welcome here anytime." Chio smiled at that and sat down, petting Usagi-chan who was snuggled up on a cushion. Where is Midoriya-kun? The rabbit never leaves his side, and he was usually there to greet her by now. Inko came over with the tea, setting it on the table. He left about an hour ago. Said something about finishing his training. So, he was back where it all started. The water rushed around his feet as the last boulder was lifted from the river. Wading through the muddied water, he reached the embankment and threw the boulder by the wayside. With that, the river was finally clear to flow. He sat down and smiled, taking a deep breath. He had finally done it. He was so caught up with progressing in his training that he forgot about the job he started. It was only that morning when he remembered, and he was determined to finish it. He felt at peace now that it was done. Izuku heard a steady pace of crunching gravel, and he looked up to the forest path. So this is where you've been going this whole time, Deku? Kaken was standing there, his ever-present glare focused on him. Kaken. He walked down to the embankment, the river separating them. I knew there was a reason why you were never around. His eyes looked to Izuku's work, the shattered rocks, the shifted boulders. I don't know what pisses me off more, the fact you've been running away from me, or that you really have been holding back this whole time. Izuku opened his mouth to reply. Don't speak, you sheet, Kaken interrupted, his voice taking on a rage-filled snarl. You've never taken me seriously, have you? All these years, ever since that day, you've always held back. It didn't matter how many times I hit you, you never hit back. His red eyes glinted in the moonlight. And I FNG hate you for it. I'm just itching to go over there and beat you to a pulp. But before I do, I need to know one thing. Are you trying for UA? Izuku knew he didn't have long to answer. Yes, he whispered. Kaken only seemed to get angrier. So you've been wanting to take my top spot away as well? Sparks were popping on his hands. I want to blow you to bits, Deku. But I won't do it here. No, I'll save your beatdown for UA, where I'll be number one. Izuku felt something in his heart. The fire that had started 10 months ago sparked again. I won't let you, Kaken. The boy's eyes went up. Izuku spoke louder, a determined look on his face. I won't let you. I want to be the number one hero just like All Might. And I won't hold back. I won't let you hold me down anymore. Kaken's face went from shock to something Izuku couldn't describe. It was wild. Good, Deku. I'm looking forward to the day I get to pummel you. Izuku could feel lighting in the air. After a brief stare down, Kaken turned and walked away without a word, his hands clenching and loosening as he vanished down the darkened path. When the sounds of his footsteps disappeared, Izuku deflated. His heart was hammering. The reality of what he did hit him. His hand shook. But he was ready. She knew he would sleep through his alarm. Her little boy always did his best to stay in bed, bundled up like a caterpillar, his fluffy green hair poking out from the sheets. Even though he was 15, she still found it cute. Izuku, she said softly, it's time to get up. A grumble came from under the sheets. Inko chuckled. Don't be like that, breakfast is waiting. He turned in his cocoon. You don't want to miss your chance at UA, do you? That got him up. Like a bullet, he shot out of bed and darted around the room, pulling open drawers and throwing clothes around. She moved her head away from an errant pair of boxers. Honestly, he was like his father too much sometimes. The guy could never take too much teasing either. After letting him stew for a minute, she cleared her throat. Izuku. He stopped, a sock hanging from his head. Everything is in the kitchen. Uniform ironed, breakfast waiting, and if you want it, coffee brewing. Meet. He shuffled out into the hallway. Inko looked at the mess he left behind, spotting Usagi-chan swamped by t-shirts. The rabbit was grumpy at being woken up, its nose twitching and eyes half-lidded. She picked Usagi-chan up and put her on Izuku's bed, bundling her in his sheets. There you go. That done, she went back to the kitchen, where Izuku was slumped over his breakfast. Come on, sleepyhead, get moving, she said, tapping his shoulder as she went past. After he cleared his cereal, she handed him a coffee. Decaf, of course, not that he knew. She didn't want her little boy addicted to caffeine at his age. The placebo effect was working just fine. What time is it? He asked after a sip. Just after 7, Inko replied. You've got about an hour until you have to be at UA. That should be plenty of time for you to get ready and get there. Thanks, Mum. No problem, Izuku. They didn't really speak after that. She knew whatever encouragement she would say would only put more pressure on him. She knew for a fact that he was already thinking in circles, worrying endlessly, just like she used to be before she had him. Motherhood had done wonders for her nerves, even if she still got a little emotional from time to time. 20 minutes later and Inko was ready to see him off, standing at the entrance to the apartment. Pencil case. Yes. Food. Yep. Water. Training gear. Izuku sighed, shifting from foot to foot. I've got everything, Mum. Double-checked. He was eager to go. There was a part of her that didn't want him to. But in the end, I'm so proud of you, Izuku. He smiled and tears filled his eyes. Please don't cry, she thought, you'll set me off. She blinked and felt something wrapped around her. It took a second to realize what was happening. She was being hugged. By Izuku. By her baby boy. She locked her arms around him and found he wasn't such a baby anymore. His body was firm and muscled, and his head rested on her shoulder. The last time she held him, it was on her stomach. Her baby boy had grown up. His arms loosened, but she pulled him closer, pressing his head into her shoulder. A hand cradled the back of his head, just like when he was young. It had been so long. He must have felt the tears rushing down her face because he pulled back, worried. But, are you okay? I haven't hurt you, have I? Inko looked at his face, the lines of maturity starting to form on his cheeks and his jaw, the roundness of his face becoming like his father's. I love you, son. The panic went from his face and he gave a watery smile. I love you too, Mum. Then he looked guilty. I have to go. She released him, already missing his warmth. I know. Good luck, Izuku. He seemed choked up as he gave a strangled hum and a nod. Wiping his eyes, he turned, picked up his backpack, and set off into the morning sun. When the doors closed behind him, Inko sobbed. She covered her mouth as the tears started again. All the years she felt like a failure. All the years she felt she missed. The years she spent at arm's distance from her son. The time spent watching him fold into himself. And he still loved her. He still wanted to hug her. She was still his mum. It was a lot bigger up close, he thought. Looking at the top made his head spin. As people walked past him, Izuku still couldn't believe he was there. The pinnacle of hero schools, the place where all the greats came from. Where all might came from. Where he would come from. Hopefully. But time to take my first step into the hero life. I won't be a timid loser anymore. He took a step and tripped. Over his own feet. The traitors. Before his face met the ground, he felt a lurch in his stomach and his body felt like a bubble. Then he noticed the ground wasn't getting any closer. Maybe he was a bubble? Are you okay? A timid voice came from his side. It was soft and high-pitched like a girl's. The girl's. A girl. Do you need help? A girl was talking to him. And he was just floating in the air, straight as a board, staring at the ground. I'm fine. Completely fine. Now he was spinning in the air. You don't look fine. Now she was freaking out. He wanted to die. What's happening? I can't stop. It's my quirk. I'll let you down, but you need to stop moving. He stilled his arms, feeling like he would throw up from all the spinning. A hand was placed on his shoulder and another pushed his back, setting him upright. Release. And just like that, he was back on solid ground. He'd have kissed it if he didn't have to keep his breakfast down. Do you need me to get someone? He turned to the girl who helped him and his brain shut down. Talking to her in an emergency was fine, but now they could have a conversation. Recovery girls training didn't teach him to converse. Especially not with a girl. He could only stare and murmur as she backed away with a nervous look on her round face. I have to go, she said, and he made note of her bob-cut hair. Ah, he said? Replied. There were so many switches turned off in his head. When the power came back on, she was gone and he was alone in the courtyard. That meant he was late. He never ran so fast in his life. Luckily the introduction hadn't started, and Izuku found a spot in the back of the lecture hall. Once he settled down and got his breath back, Preset Mike took the floor and started the introduction. Caught up fanboying over the hero, he didn't notice the person sat next to him lean close. Izuku turned to the person. What? It was another girl. Truly today was the biggest test of his life. I see you were late too, she whispered. Even in the low lighting, Izuku could see that her skin tone and eyes were different than a normal person's. I was cutting it close myself, but it's good to know I'm not the only tardy one here. BG. Ignoring his babbling, she continued, getting even closer with a friendly and excited smile. My name's Ashido Mina. What's yours? Excuse me, I have a question. A person exclaimed from the middle. Present Mike let him ask it. You have only told us about 3 machines, but in the pamphlet there are 4. Yeah, that one isn't worth any points, Present Mike replied, so you don't need to fight it at all. Is that all? No, sorry. The boy turned to the back and looked Izuku dead in the eyes, the light glinting off his glasses. I just want to say to the back to be quiet. Just because you were late, it does not mean you have to bring everyone else down who actually wants to be here. Thank you for letting me speak. That was long-winded. Present Mike mumbled. Anyway, is that it from everyone? Good. Get changed then we can get rockin'. Can I get a hell yeah? He did not get a hell yeah. Hey, you want to team up? Ashido the girl asked. Come on Izuku, ignore the fact she's a girl. Take the first step. Grow a pair. AC actually different BBB? She was still looking at him. Was that not right? IGG Group B. Seemed to get what he was saying. Success. Oh, Group B? That's a bummer. Are you foreign? You don't look it. Maybe with that hair. The lights came on and he noticed she was pink. Pink all over, even her hair. And she had some pretty cool horns. He had no idea what her quirk could be with those features. Maybe a telepath? Anyway, I better get going. She shuffled by him. I hope I see you soon. You better pass. Ah, Izuku said. And she was gone. The second girl he talked to today. His skills were getting stronger. It was hard trying to keep his nerves in check, standing beneath the looming walls of the fake city. Everybody around him were dealing with it in their own way, either talking to each other or stretching. Izuku himself was doing what he did best, observing. Like it or not, they were his competition, and figuring out how their quirks worked would give him a leg up. One person caught his attention. A flamboyant blonde boy talking with a small group. He had a special-looking belt. A focusing lens? A stabilizer? Back support? Izuku knew that his quirk must be focused around the area. If it was a laser of some kind, then Izuku would have to be careful that his points wouldn't be stolen from a distance. A hand fell on his shoulder and he jumped. It was the glasses guy that called him out. He seemed like the proper and polite sort, especially with how he spoke before. I was hoping I would be in your group. Why you did? Just. I hope you are not here for a joke. This is a prestigious academy that accepts and trains only the finest. Izuku stepped back. No, I'm not here for a joke. I want to pass. It seemed to placate the man. Good. I hope you can back that conviction up. Go! The screech echoed through the air and everyone looked around, confused. You think villains'll give you a warning? It was Present Mike. Get moving! Within seconds everyone was running for the gateway, the glasses guy speeding off with what looked like exhaust pipes on his calves. Another quirk Izuku registered before he set off as well. When he passed through the gate, he was met with clangs of steel and cries of effort. Everyone was fighting their way through the entrance, not looking back. That drove Izuku to move himself, noticing he was behind everyone else. Luckily, with his strength, he could beat the robots with ease and hopefully rack up some points quickly. On cue, a robot slid around the corner and immediately sped towards him. Izuku pulled his arm back, waiting. When it got at range, it swung an arm which Izuku ducked. Encounter! His fist sailed through the air and clanged harmlessly off its steel chassis. He didn't have time to be surprised when another arm swung for him. He braced, closing his eyes. There was a rush of wind and an obnoxious laugh. When Izuku opened his eyes, he saw the flamboyant blonde from earlier standing atop a two-pointer. "Thank you for distracting the robot. We make a good team, no?" Izuku gritted his teeth. "Perhaps not then, well, toodles." The blonde jetted himself away with a glittering stream from his belt. Izuku spotted another robot and started to panic. What happened to his quirk? He knew he had the power to knock the robot away, but it never happened. Almost as if he never had his quirk to begin with. Was it his nerves? Was he still too scared to not hold himself back around others? The robot spotted him and got closer, the hulking three-pointers staring him down. Would his durability be gone too? One hit with from a machine that big would kill him. As the ground shook, Izuku remembered something. He hadn't felt his quirk in weeks. It was only now he remembered what it was like walking around with such raw power underneath. Every movement felt like he was fighting himself, always tense, always fighting the current. Ever since he got Usagi-chan, he lost that feeling. How it felt? Green sparks flew. His body tensed. All he had to do was remember how it felt. How it felt to break. His fist pulled back. The three-pointer shot forward. His fist sailed through the air. At first, the steel dented. Then it caved in. Then the robot flew, crashing into a building in a cloud of dust. The current was flowing. He wasn't fighting it. Izuku smirked. It was time to catch up. Tashinori was told to keep an eye out. "You'll know him when you see him," she said. Easier said than done. There were so many powerful quirks on display, including a few strength ones. Nothing came close to showing the power of One for All, though Tashinori didn't expect such young children to do a full-powered smash. "Ooh, that was a good one." Tashinori looked towards one of the operators who was pointing at a coworker's screen. "Yeah, that was pretty wild. I'm going to keep an eye on him, looks promising." The camera was following a boy with wild green hair who was speeding around the city. Each step propelled him quite a distance. Possibly some kind of gravity quirk. That assumption quickly changed when the boy caught sight of a two-pointer and launched towards it, fist pulled back. Even though the punch was sloppy, Tashinori was amazed at how much force it held. The machine had folded into scrap. That makes 5 points. Only 5? 7. He's really ramping it up. He was indeed, but he was running out of bots. The most he could get would be 17 before there would be none left in the sector. With a minute left, Tashinori doubted he could reach any more, even with his speed. With so few points, that would mean a fail. He needed a miracle. "Send out the 0-pointers," Netsu commanded. And with a press of a button they emerged, tearing through the cities, sending scared teenagers running for the exit. All except for one. She was trapped underneath some rubble, the 0-pointer rumbling towards her. They would stop it before she got hurt, but they would leave it till the last second. After all, it was only in true life or death situations where the true spirit of a hero arose. Why did everything in UA have to be so big? Izuku assumed the 0-pointer would be non-aggressive, simple cannon fodder meant to distract people from the real goal. Heroes had to keep focused on the situation after all. Instead it was bigger than all the buildings and twice as wide, quaking the ground with every inch it moved. So Izuku booked it like everyone else. Except, unlike the rest, he heard something, a grunt of struggle. He stopped and looked over his shoulder. There, pinned under a rock, was the girl who saved him from his fall not an hour ago. "You need to move." Couldn't. It was the one time he hated his attention to detail. He could see the pain on her face, the panic. His mind told him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. It felt like his torso was trying to drag him away. "You're an instinctual person, Izuku." That's what Recovery Girl told him. When you want to do something, you lose all that nervousness. Like when you faced that villain, you let go of all your worries. There was only one thing on your mind: to save. And that is what will make you a hero. His legs coiled. Tashinori felt a pull. And Izuku rocketed forward. In one leap, he had covered the distance to the girl, who looked at him in surprise. With some effort, Izuku lifted the rubble off her leg. "Run!" She pushed herself up and took a step before she stumbled. "I can't. I think my leg's broken." The weight was starting to strain his arms. It felt like his power was draining. Just move out from under this. As swiftly as she could, she crawled along the floor, all the while the massive treads of the robot were getting closer. When she was clear, Izuku discarded the rubble and moved to pick her up. Watch out! Izuku ducked, a massive metal hand sailing just above his head. He picked up the girl and jumped, only to have to drop and change course as another swing tried to intercept them. They were locked in its range. Another one! She shouted. Izuku knew he couldn't dodge. He put the girl down and turned, throwing his arms out and stopped the robot's hand dead. Where he got the strength from, he didn't know. He only had time to act. Pushing the hand away, Izuku jumped towards the robot's center, landing a punch that pushed it back slightly. It wasn't enough. Putting as much energy into his legs as he could, he jumped again, managing to reach its head. His fist met steel and barely made a dent. Green sparks arced from his body as he clung to the robot's face. He struck again. Nothing. The metal caved. Izuku gritted his teeth and for a moment, the sparks stopped. His fist let loose. With a primal scream, he struck, and the robot flew backwards from the force, its head falling apart as rivets were blown loose. Around him the wind whipped wildly, shattering what windows were left. As the machine slowly fell, Izuku leapt off, tumbling along the floor on his landing. It crashed with a massive clang and a plume of dust kicked into the air. The girl. Izuku turned. Every eye was on him. They were transfixed, wide-eyed, mouths open. Izuku wanted to crawl into a hole. When the last screw fell, people started whispering, steadily moving closer. Izuku backed up. It was too much at once for him right now. Before they got too close, however, a commanding voice cut through the murmurs. All right, settle down. Make way. Recovery girl. Izuku wanted to cry. Go and get any wounds tended to. If you don't have any, go get changed. There will be a rest PRD before the written test begins. Now go on, off with you. Slowly, the crowd turned to leave, still whispering amongst themselves. Recovery girl hobbled towards them. I see you're still causing trouble, Midoriya-kun, she said with a smile. He laughed nervously and rubbed the back of his head, remembering the slap he got the last time he was troublesome. When she got closer, she inspected him. You seem to be fine, bar a few scratches. Go and get them disinfected while I tend to this girl. She has a broken leg. They both looked at him. Think you asked to save you time? Recovery girl chuckled. Thank you, Midoriya-kun. Go on now, I don't want you to miss on what little break you have. Okay, he said. Then he looked the girl in the eyes. His face burned. Bye. Like a bullet, he was off. Eye contact was scary. Toshinori knew there was something familiar with the boy. He was the same one from months ago, the one who fought the villain in the dusty street. Back then he had noticed the gleam in the boy's eyes, the fire burning underneath his timid persona. Now he had seen it manifested. The whole room was stunned. It had been a long time since someone floored the Goliath, the last one being Best Jeanist. It wasn't anything new. What stunned them was how the boy went about it. Jeanist did it because he could. It was a statement of his power. But the boy had done it to save someone with such fervor that they had never seen before. Instead of succumbing to despair when they were trapped in the machine's grip, the boy put his life on the line. They were close to turning it off when Toshinori felt the pull again. Then the boy had stopped the hand dead. The same pull happened on the final punch. There was a definite connection between him and the boy, and memories he kept locked away in his heart came to the surface. Memories of a green-haired woman who took his heart in a single summer. Memories of a night he treasured forever, right before he left. He thought he cut everything off with her, but apparently he left something with her. A child. His son. Shizenji-san was right. He was a fool. 1 week later, Izuku was staring at the TV, barely processing the information. After he left the written exam, he remembered he didn't score enough points on the practical to pass. He felt like an idiot, crushing his dream before it even started. The past week had felt like he was waiting for an execution, the noose tightening around his neck day by day. Even Usagi-chan had picked up on his nerves, and stuck herself to him even more than before. He appreciated it, it did wonders to calm him. At least he managed to save that girl. Any more and he'd be a regular rescuer of damsels in distress. Maybe that's how he could practice talking to girls. The front door slammed open and his mother rushed in the room. "Izuku! It's here!" In her hand was a wax-sealed envelope, the letters U and A stamped on. His stomach fell. "Well, don't you want to open it? Can I do it in my room?" She looked confused, but she relented, and Izuku went to his bedroom, letter in one hand and Usagi-chan in the other. He only bothered to turn his lamp on. He put Usagi-chan on the table. "Let's get this over with, Usagi-chan?" And he tore the envelope in two. A metal disc fell out, spinning on the desk before falling flat. "I am here as a projection." Ah! Izuku almost fell backwards. Floating in the air was All Might in some kind of studio. He was dressed in a suit Izuku had seen before, from an interview a couple of years ago. Midoriya Izuku. Although you passed the written exam with perfect marks, you didn't get enough points to pass the practical. As such, you have failed your entrance exam. Izuku's head dropped. If that was all there was to it. Izuku looked up to the smiling face of All Might. "Did I get you there?" He pointed a remote to a TV in the back. Was Izuku about to watch a screen through a projection? Observe. It was the girl. She was speaking with present mic. "Excuse me, do you know the boy with the curly green hair? Kind of plain looking, had freckles? I think his name is Midoriya-kun. Do you know who I'm talking about?" "I think I know. Is he still on campus? I want to thank him. He saved me. And even if he didn't pass his written exam or anything, I think he should be accepted." The screen turned off. What kind of hero academy would we be if we didn't reward selflessness? All Might said. Destroying foe villains wasn't the only thing you were graded on. There are hero points too, given by a panel of judges. Thanks to that, you gained 70 hero points. Put that together with your 17 villain points and you're the top of the entrance examinees. No way. This is now your hero academia. No way. The projection cut out. Izuku shook in his seat. Usagi-chan. He scooped the rabbit into his arms. "I did it. I'm in. I can be a hero." He was nervous. It only occurred to him in the morning that a new school meant new people who didn't know about his social isolation. In his last school, people got used to ignoring him quickly. He never made any effort to interact with them, and every time he did it ended in catastrophe. Like when he launched the desk the year before. So the idea of meeting new people was intimidating. He understood that UA was a fresh slate. There he could use his quirk and people wouldn't be freaked out. After all, those who got into UA had strong quirks of their own. It was also a chance to actually talk to people. Maybe he could even get friends. Friends, not Kaken friends. Before he passed through the gates, he took a deep breath. He was going to do better. He was going to get out there. He took a step. Then another. He didn't trip over. Progress. As he navigated the halls, he took the time to double-check his backpack. It was a too little too late, but luckily everything was in there, including a bento made by his mother. He smiled at the sight. One thing to look forward to. Ever since the entrance exams, she smiled a lot more. Every time she would pass him, he would get his hair ruffled or his shoulder held for a second. She also took every opportunity to embarrass him with a hug. When he asked her why she changed so much, she simply replied with, "I'm just catching up." He felt guilty after that, something which she quickly noticed and put to rest. He wouldn't admit that he enjoyed the affection. He was a teenage boy after all, but years of restricting himself had left a hole of comfort in his childhood. He was happy the hole was closing. Usagi-chan had tried to sneak into his backpack as well. Somehow she figured out that he took it whenever he left the house, and so the only way to stay near her favorite pillow was to be carried by him. Needless to say, he was shocked when he opened his backpack to see her pointed ears emerging. After a quick scolding, he took the bunny out and placed her on the couch, putting a couple of cushions near her. Placated, but upset, she quickly snuggled her way underneath a cushion and went to sleep. He wished he could have done the same. It didn't take him long to get to room 1A, considering it was on the first floor. As he stood before the massive door, which surprisingly he wasn't shocked at. He gave himself another fortifying breath before sliding it open, and almost getting chopped in the face. It is rude and unsavory to be placing your feet upon the school tables. It was the glasses guy. Shove it. I'll do what I want, you sheet. Scolding Kaken. Izuku's chances of making friends in the class dwindled. May I remind you that we are in a presty dash. Do you ever shut up? Kaken interrupted. You're giving me a headache. He turned his head away from the glasses guy and saw Izuku at the door. Deku. That drew the attention of Glasses-kun. Izuku started sweating as the glasses guy approached. I have words for you, he said as he approached. He stopped at arm's reach, and his back snapped into a perfect bow. I apologize for my rude words on the entrance exam. It appeared to me at the end that you truly knew the secret of the exam, and your selflessness as truly inspiring. I take back everything I said, please forgive me. Izuku, back away. It's okay, really? The guy wasn't getting up. It was getting awkward. You're forgiven. His body snapped back up. Thank you very much. A hand chopped out. My name is Ida Tenya, nice to meet you. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Midoriya Izuku, nice to meet you. It got a little meek by the end, but this was good. He'd spoken at least 2 sentences. Yo, green guy. A voice came from the left. It was the pink girl. You made it. She was leaning over her desk, waving. Good morning. He waved back feebly. It was too early for all this energy. Something bumped into his back. I could have sworn this was a door. Izuku turned to see the girl he saved rubbing her forehead. They locked eyes and Izuku blushed, remembering how she pleaded for him to get into Yue. She blushed as well. Ito. Shut up and take your seats. You're not here to socialize. They were both startled by the noise and turned to see a man-sized caterpillar. It's too early for this, he mumbled in a deep baritone. Izuku and the girl exchanged another glance before they went to their seats. When the class settled down, and the caterpillar shuffled to the front, he shed his skin to reveal he wasn't a caterpillar at all. Just a sleep-deprived adult. The texture of the sleeping bag should have given it away, but with quirks around that turned people pink, you never could be sure. The man cleared his throat. My name's Aizawa, and from this day forward I'm your teacher. He looked at the room and put some eye drops in. Now, we've got introductions to get out the way. You're all seated alphabetically. I'm sure you can figure out what order you're in. I'll be over here resting. He sat in a chair next to the podium. Make it quick. I want to start the first lesson. And so the introductions began. One by one he found out his classmates' names, relearning the pink girl's, Ashido-san's, name. There was a small comfort he found. Kota Koji was just as, if not more, timid than he was. Maybe they could be shy together in the corner. Or separate corners. He also learned the girl's name, Uraraka Ochako. It suited her. Kaken kept his brief, announcing to the whole class that he was going to be number 1 and the side characters should stay out of the way. No one bothered to comment. Before he knew it, it was Izuku's turn. The walk up to the front was unbearable. Eyes bore into him from every angle. Again, he glanced at Uraraka and she smiled, giving him a thumbs up. Emboldened, he stepped up. And had no idea what to say. Everyone else had said what their quirks were along with their names. Most importantly, however, you could tell what kind of person they were. Like Aoyama, flamboyant, sparkly, and a little annoying. Izuku didn't want to come across as shy and timid. This was his chance to strike out. He squared his shoulders, cleared his throat. Midoriya Izuku. Strength quirk. Please take care of me. Did he yell that loud? The earphone jack girl was rubbing her ears with a squint. Even Aizawa jerked awake. What's going on? Just go sit down. Okay. It was amazing what 2 massive letters printed on his uniform did. The UA gym clothes were the same as the ones Recovery Girl gave him, but these were official. Branded. It would be a treasured possession forever. All right, Aizawa began. The first thing that you've got to get through your heads is that this isn't middle school anymore. This is a place where you're training to become heroes. As such, you need to be at peak physicality. To get a gauge of your abilities, we're gonna do the standard athletic tests. Aizawa pointed into the crowd. Midoriya, you came first in the entrance exam. Come over here for the first demonstration. He was already being picked out? Izuku made his way from the back of the group, passing by astonished stares and the burning glare that Kaken gave him. Did Aizawa have to alienate him so early? When he got to the front, he was given a baseball. Midoriya, what was your record throw in middle school? WL. Izuku looked to his feet. I never got to do the tests. I haven't really been able to turn my quirk off until recently. Aizawa hummed. If anything, that just proves the point I was going to make. He turned to the class. In middle school, you weren't allowed to use your quirks, to make it fair or some other stupid reason. Here, however, you're going to train your minds, bodies, and quirks so that all are synchronous. Midoriya, throw the ball. Time to set a record for yourself. Throw the ball. He could do that. Trying to ignore the expectant stares, he set his arm back. Would form matter with how much force he could put out? What would the right angle be? He was the first person to display a quirk in the whole class. Would they be scared? Any time today. He was thinking in circles again, and since he had to stop his mouth from moving, he was probably mumbling too. He took a breath. And he threw. Wind whipped and cut into the ground, kicking up dirt and coughing up clouds of grainy brown. His classmates covered their eyes whilst trying to see the ball. Aizawa stood calmly, watching the number increase on his phone, an eyebrow arched. When the dust had settled, Aizawa turned the phone to the class. Here, he said, displaying the measurement 1,267 kilometers. You can see how a quirk can change these tests into something more feasible. You can consider this a hero score, something that goes beyond normal human limits. I will be watching these tests. If, by the end, you fail to create a single hero score, or place at the bottom of the class, you will be expelled. Expulsion? It was only the first day. Am I understood? Hesitant mumbles came back. But, let's begin. When Izuku returned to the group, the hesitancy was disappearing. You know, this could be pretty cool, Kaminari said. Yeah, Kirishima agreed. We can finally kick loose and go all out. It's the ultimate test of manliness. Hell, even seeing that throw got me all fired up. He pointed at Izuku. You hear that, Midoriya? I'm gonna fight you every step of the way. Me too. Me too. You seem like a good challenge. Instead of being intimidated by his score, they were excited. These people were insane. Deku, Kaken growled, I'm gonna blow you to pieces. Uraraka chuckled nervously. Let's do our best, Midoriya-kun. He blushed. Why? Let's do our best. Aizawa Shoyuta was not a lenient person. His life as a hero dragged him through the seedy underbelly of the world. Being lenient, showing mercy, was a first-class ticket to an early grave. Something too many of his friends had succumbed to. It was one of the reasons why he started teaching. The children had to be taught that hero work wasn't all glamour and glory, there were lives on the line at all times, including their own. Of course, he couldn't give them the threat of death if they failed, so he settled on the death of their hero career. Many saw it as cold, the human part of him did too, but it was necessary. He did not want them to become like him. Sure, he never wanted the glory and fame that came with being a hero, but he was faced with his own battles. There was a point, through all the midnight beatings, through all the late arrivals to crime scenes, through all the filth, that he felt himself towing the line between heroism and villainy. The constant battle between selflessness and selfishness. Compassion and nihilism. Good and hate. He lost count of how many SEC rings he busted, how many bloodied bodies he found slumped in alleys. But he always remembered how many he has killed. 1. It was a usual beat on a usual night. His eyes were dry and his feet were aching. He spent the day incognito, walking around the city looking for clues. His patience was thin. So when he heard a scream and saw a man ripping a woman's shirt in half, he snapped. It wasn't an epic fight. The man didn't have a powerful quirk. Aizawa just dropped down from a building, wrapped the man up in his capture gear, and threw him against the wall. It was more force than necessary, more than he'd ever used. The man's neck had snapped on impact, killing him instantly. Just by looking at the body, he knew the man was dead. He didn't really care. What hit him was the woman. He went to give her a helping hand, maybe give her his jacket, but she flinched away from him. She was scared. Not the usual jitters of a close encounter, but terrified. She looked to the body, then to him, eyes wide and mouth shaking. Her legs pushed her against the floor until she backed up to the wall. Her body didn't know what to do, caught up between holding a snapped bra strap up and preserving her decency. Aizawa knew she wanted to run. Quickly, he turned, activated a beacon for the police, and climbed the building with his gear. The day later, he applied for a job at UA and got it immediately thanks to his experience. The day after, he gained his reputation as one of the toughest instructors in the school after he expelled his entire class. The principal never complained, so Aizawa continued. Maybe Nedzu had the same view as he did. It didn't matter. Class by class he would train the best DMN heroes he could. Life wasn't fair, so neither was he. As usual, the class he got for 1A were all kids with powerful quirks. All of them bubbly and excited for their high school hero life. All of them wanted to be the best, another generation of All Might smile, but Aizawa would show them that all the bravado in the world would not carry them through. Funnily enough, for the first time in his teaching life, they all backed it up. He knew the tests were unfair for some, like Kaminari and Hagakure, whose quirks were for very specific roles. He wasn't looking for a quirk-flexing competition, even though it turned into one. He was looking for those who were willing to push themselves and go beyond. To show the meaning of plus ultra. Those who didn't would end up at the bottom and be expelled. That was the theory. All the kids went above and beyond. They were not only resourceful, but they showed the determination to push through their feelings of hopelessness. Mineta, for all his complaining, used his quirk in such a way it put him in the middle of the table. Uraraka displayed the knowledge of her own quirk, using weightlessness to its full advantage. She, like Hagakure, pushed through their normalness to achieve results better than they got in middle school. And they still wanted to do better. And Midoriya Izuku, the timid boy with such raw power, broke whatever chains were shackling him. In the end he was trying to compete, and he beat his previous pitch by 200 kilometers. So, in the end, I was lying. It was an intellectual lie made to increase your performance. You all passed. Hagakure had stopped crying tears of sadness and turned them into tears of joy, hugging Ishido around the waist from the floor. Don't think this is the end though. I still have the power to expel you at any time. Now go get changed and get to your next lessons. I'll see you tomorrow. With that, he walked away to the staff room, right into All Might who was hiding around the corner. Are you becoming soft, Aizawa-chan? He didn't have the patience for this. I don't know what you're talking about. All Might smiled. Of course not. I've just never seen you keep a whole class before. His voice went from a cheerful lilt to a deeper tone. A lie, you say? It seems you see the same thing in them that I do. Aizawa rolled his eyes. And I'm sure that has nothing to do with your secret love child. All Might sputtered. What are you talking about? Midoriya Izuku. His quirks beat for beat like yours. You're so funny, Aizawa-san. You always say the most ridiculous things. All Might laughed. It was forced. Too forced. Aizawa's eyes widened. I'm right, aren't I? No, of course not. Another laugh. Aizawa looked at All Might. His stance was as straight as it always has been, but his eyes told a different story. He was nervous. I was just joking, Aizawa said. I thought you could take a joke. Anyway, I'm going. Got another class to teach. See you, Eraserhead. As he walked away from the number one hero, Aizawa smiled wickedly. This year was turning out to be fun. He hoped the students could keep up. The cafeteria was huge. The food looked amazing as well. For once, Izuku wished he didn't have his mother's bento in his bag. He scanned the tables, looking for a nice, quiet place to sit. Midoriya-kun. Midoriya-san. He looked to the noise and saw Uraraka and Ida by a table, food in hand. Ida was waving to him erratically, while Uraraka smiled embarrassingly. This was his chance. He shuffled to them. Hey. Ida got close, right into his personal bubble. Izuku fought to keep the emergency alarms down. Midoriya-san, would you like to eat lunch with us? Izuku looked past Ida's shoulder to Uraraka. It'd be nice, Midoriya-kun. Okay, he stuttered. When they were seated, he was next to Ida, while Uraraka was on the other side. Midoriya-san, I was most impressed by your performance in the tests. I cannot believe I ever doubted you. Same here, Midoriya-kun, Uraraka chimed. You were amazing. He blushed, scratching his head in a nervous panic. It was nothing really. Why, you two were awesome as well. The nervous air put them all into silence. Before we eat, I just want to say something, Uraraka said. Midoriya-kun, thank you. She saw his confusion. I just thought that I haven't thanked you for saving me that day. I was really scared, you know? So thank you. She bowed. Izuku chuckled. It wasn't a problem. He smiled. I'm just happy I helped you. She looked up. There was a pause. And Uraraka released a huge breath and fell back on the seat. Thank goodness. I was feeling tense all week. I'm glad we got that out of the way, Midoriya-kun. We can be good friends now. Friends. Indeed. Ida announced. Together, as three, we will traverse our high school lives to the fullest. The sincerity, the arms, the serious look. Izuku couldn't help it. He laughed. Uraraka gave in too, holding her sides. It was so cliché. Eventually, Ida chuckled too. As lunch progressed, they talked a bit about themselves, Izuku chipping in shyly. He didn't want to say too much. Uraraka held back as well, Izuku could tell. At the end of school, when they walked to the school gates together, Izuku could confidently say that he made some friends. One of them was a girl. Ochako woke up early, still not used to the new place. It was small and manageable, a studio-style kitchen and living room space with a small corridor leading to a bathroom, bedroom, and toilet. It was refreshing, being in a new place, being free from the burden of rent thanks to her scholarship. Her old home, while warm and loving, felt like it was frozen in time. The days were all the same. Wake up, cereal or toast, brush teeth, get changed, 30-minute walk to school, get back, study, listen to music. Then sleep. Glorious sleep. Nothing could bother her in her sleep, and it made the future come just a little bit faster. Since her parents worked all day, she only really saw them in the mornings and at night. That meant Ochako was the one who brought in the letters. If they didn't have red text or stamps on the envelope, she would squeeze it and try and peek through the little window slot to see who sent it. Then, at night, reading over her books, she would flinch at the sound of tearing paper, a cold hand seizing her heart as the papers shuffled past the door. There would be silence, murmurs, and sometimes a sob or two. Ochako would come out later for a drink and smile like nothing was wrong. That she was fine. Her parents would smile back too, most of the time. They were all lying to each other, and they knew it. Even still, they would smile, they would pat her on the back, offer her money so she could go out with her friends, which she never really had. They knew she was poor. They still wanted the best for her. And they thought the best was her leaving her old life behind. How could she, when they had done so much for her? They clothed her, fed her, kept her safe, and her appreciation for them would never go away. They were amazing people who did their best for everyone they knew. Selfless and kind. They didn't deserve the life they had. She had asked them once, when the rent had backed up and all they could afford were a few tins of food for a couple of weeks, if their life would be easier if she never existed. Her mother looked at her, tears welling up as her father looked horrified. Immediately she was smothered by the two and told to never say something like that again. It wasn't until a couple of years later that Ochako figured out they thought she was going to kill herself, something not even in her mind at the time. It was just, growing up, she saw everything as an expense. Toys were never in abundance, but she knew that they had a cost. As such, she knew that she herself was an expense, something else that kept them in the red. When she was 10, and learned just how much it cost to keep a person fed, she was annoyed about how much of a burden she was. So from then she studied harder than ever before, with UA as her target. If she could get in there, then even as a sidekick her wage would be pretty good. Well, pretty good to her standards. It was only when she was staring death in the face did she fully understand what she gotten herself into, and what to aim for. Midoriya Izuku. Not only did he save her life, which she would pay him back properly for one day, but he showed her what a real student at UA was supposed to be. Selfless, determined, willing to push through. It made her dream feel meager. Was she only in it for the money? She didn't know. Her alarm beeped. Had she been lying there for that long? She aimed into her pillow. At least at home she had a bed. Willing herself out of her futon, she rubbed the sleep from her eyes and tried to pat down her hair. It always poofed out in the mornings. Breakfast was a simple bowl of cereal, and she listened to some music on her dad's old portable cassette player. Ironing her uniform, she wondered what the day ahead would bring. Aizawa-sensei was not a good start to the year, and the threat of expulsion would probably hang over their heads for the rest of the year. What if she wasn't perfect? They were on the knife's edge. Come on, you can't think like that, she said to herself. Do your best and everything will be fine. She repeated the words her parents always told her. But they always did their best and nothing was fine. She smacked her cheeks. That voice was there again, countering every thought with something negative. It was going to be okay. She'd go to school, do the work and pass another day. Her phone beeped again and she realized she was still standing at the ironing board in her pajamas. I'm going to be late. After she got dressed, she passed by the mirror hung in the hallway. Her hair stared back from its many angles. There was no time. She'd have to sort it out on the way there. Izuku had a better morning. He made it to school 10 minutes early and had time to set up his desk. Ida was there too, and they had a little chat, mainly guessing what would be in store for the day. I just hope Aizawa-sensei isn't doing the hero course. Izuku muttered. Indeed. He has put us in a bit of a bind, hasn't he? Yeah. Ida's glasses glinted and he pointed a finger to the ceiling. But fear not. Aizawa-sensei's challenge will elevate us to become the best heroes we can be. We must not falter. Izuku edged back. Why yeah? He half-raised a fist. Let's do it. Izuku hoped he would get used to Ida's enthusiasm soon. His heart wouldn't be able to take much more. Every flick and hand gesture had him palpitating. He wondered if the engine quirk did more than just affect his legs. His whole body had energy to burn. Actually, that was an interesting theory. Would the engine quirk be able to speed up his thought process? It could make him smarter and have better reactions. Perhaps it was already a thing, since he seemed to be able to process information whilst running at high speeds. Still, that didn't explain his arms. Were there exhausts underneath his sleeves? Midoriya-kun, are you okay? The world came back to focus and Ida's face. Izuku fell back in his chair. Midoriya-kun, does anyone have a torch? What do you need a torch for? I believe Midoriya-kun has gone into shock. I must check his pupils then immediately begin resuscitation. I have a torch. Thank you, Yaoyorozu-san. Resuscitation? Did that mean mouth to mouth? No. He shot up to his feet. I'm fine. Are you sure, Midoriya-kun? Yes, I'm fine, completely fine. Please stop shining that in my eyes. As Izuku shielded his eyes, a shout came from the door. Safei! He managed to peek through his fingers to see Uraraka sliding through the doorway, hands wobbling for balance. Her cheeks were more flushed than usual and her hair was sticking out in places. Trying to compose herself, she shifted her backpack before noticing him and Ida by the window. What's going on here? She asked hesitantly. Ida faced her, causing Uraraka to cover her eyes from the light. Sorry. He turned the torch off. Midoriya-kun was murmuring and went into shock. She looked at him. Really? Are you okay, Midoriya-kun? She leaned closer and Izuku blushed. Yes, I'm fine. Ida-san just surprised me. Are you sure? He nodded. She moved back. Thank God. What? Okay then. Just let us know if you need us, okay? Yes. He looked at her hair again. Uraraka-san. Take your seats. It's time for some maths, came Aizawa's sleeping-bagged form from the doorway. Hurry up, I hate this stuff as much as you do, so let's get it over with. He shuffled to the board as Uraraka and Ida said their goodbyes. An arm snaked from the bag, pen in hand. Let's begin. The next few hours were what Izuku was comfortable with, academics. All those years restraining himself physically, he managed to find some joy in solving problems. Doing it in UA only made it better, since it was all going towards his future as a hero. Though there was one thing he was looking forward to, the hero training lesson. Toshinori was dreading the hero training lesson. He had never taught a class before, and not even his thousands of public events could have prepared him for the class ahead. He was afraid his all-might form would collapse earlier than usual, and they would see how weak he really was. 3 hours was always a rough estimate. He was also worried for the safety of the children. The all-might in him thought his fears were unfounded. He'd been responsible for so much more in the past. Taking care of children in a controlled environment was nothing. It was probably because he was now a mentor to the next successor of One for All. It came with a pressure he could not describe, multiplied by the fact Midoriya was his own blood. Unknowingly, he had cursed his son with carrying the weight of society on his shoulders, even if the boy didn't know it yet. He needed guidance, and from what Shizenji-san said, control. He was like the settings on a microwave. When he chose an increment of power, he was stuck with it. Toshinori would have to find a way to help him without outright revealing their quirks were the same. He had to do that while also increasing the boy's confidence in himself. Toshinori sighed, putting on his baggy costume. If only he was around sooner. If only he knew earlier. If she told him, he could have helped. The boy, his son, could be normal. Don't focus on the could-haves, Toshi-kun. The only thing they do is drag you down. All a hero can do is look forward and smile. Always smile, Toshi-kun. She said that to him before she passed on the power. Words he lived by for years. Whenever he found it hard to breathe and eat, and he couldn't find a reason to smile, her words would emerge from the cloud of his mind, crisp and clear. The words that made all might. You know what I like about you the most, Toshi? It's your smile. It always makes me feel safe, and it makes you look so handsome. And, to be honest, it really gets my heart racing. Hey, don't laugh. At least I didn't say it was your but like you did. I'm trying to be romantic. Her voice had been showing up more as well the past few weeks. It started slow at first. Faint smells that prodded his memories, vivid greens of the forest leaves. Then her voice came and he wondered if she still sounded the same. He would be a fool to think she would look the same. After all, he just had to look into a mirror. It killed him to not get in contact with her, to ask her questions and see how she was doing, to catch up on Izuku's early years. If she gave him the right. If she didn't hate his guts. Yai-sen, Cemento said, pulling him out of his thoughts. Your class is about to start. Thanks, Cemento-san. Closing his eyes, Toshinori flicked the switch in his head and turned the current on. In 2 seconds his costume was filled out, and all might took over. Wish me luck, everyone. He shouted to the staff room before setting off to 1A. He hoped the exercise wouldn't leave anyone with serious injuries. Recovery girl would kill him. Izuku eyed the briefcase excitedly, turning it about in his hands. When he had to submit his design for a costume, he didn't have much say in the process. Recovery girl had shown up with some diagrams and consulted with his mother over the design. The whole evening was him trying to sneak a peek, and them shooing him away while muttering and pointing between themselves. If he didn't have anxiety before, he would have contracted it then. So it would be his first time seeing his costume. He couldn't get to the changing rooms fast enough. He only hoped it didn't look stupid for functionality reasons. What equipment did he need, really? When he opened the case, he was pleasantly surprised. Inside was a dark green jumpsuit made of a thick material, with black lines running down the legs and arms. Elbow and knee pads were fitted to the suit, along with a cup to protect his, lower area. When he pulled the suit fully out, there was more equipment at the bottom, along with a note. He set the suit on the bench and read the note. Midoriya-kun. This suit is made from a new fabric the support lab is testing. It's tear-resistant, waterproof, and provides some protection from knife attacks. Don't go thinking about getting stabbed. It's still just a jumpsuit. Along with the suit is a pair of gloves, a face guard, and some boots. Your mother told me how much you love those shoes of yours, so I had them recreated. These, however, are steel toe-capped. Your gloves, as well, have reinforced knuckles. It's not steel, I don't want you breaking your classmates' bones, but it will give you the protection you need until you train those knuckles. The face guard was your mother's idea, in case you want to protect your identity. She said she wanted it made, like a big smile, just like his favorite hero. You should be happy you have such a thoughtful mother. Good luck, Midoriya-kun. They worked so hard. Izuku wondered how many strings Recovery Girl had to pull to get that material. Probably not many, she had a hard smack. 5 minutes left, a robotic voice came from a speaker. Everybody else was almost ready, some people's costumes easier to put on than others. Ida's looked complicated and Kaken's, if you lookin' at Deku? Was not important at all. Not one bit. He would look later. If I catch you doing that again, I'll blow you to bits. Or not. He was the last one to reach training area B. When he showed up, Uraraka greeted him. And he almost died. Wow, Midoriya-kun, I like your costume. It looks super down to earth. The visor is pretty cool too. Was his heart supposed to clench that way? Did he have super strength in his heart too? Was he going to die? I should have asked for more on my design. I ended up with a bodysuit. Why was she shuffling? He had to resist. It's pretty embarrassing. Why was she scratching her head? It made her, assets look, enlarged. Resist. He had to resist. Ble? He forgot how to speak Japanese. Was she always so pretty? Listen up, young ones. Wait, that voice. A blast of wind and a blur of color, and All Might was standing before them. I am here. He pointed at them. Here to teach you. Let me explain what we're doing today. Everyone, Izuku included, was staring in awe at the #1 hero. That's totally a Silver Age costume. I can't believe he's really here. All Might cleared his throat. Today you'll be doing an exercise. Using lots, we will form teams of 2 dash. Sensei. Ida began, his hand raised. I have a question. Why are we leaving teams up to something as random as lots? Izuku knew the answer and he spoke before he knew his mouth was moving. Sometimes heroes have to make makeshift teams to respond to a situation properly. That is indeed correct, young Midoriya. It is this spontaneity that will be behind the lesson today. Your teams will be assigned a role, heroes or villains. The villains will be tasked with defending a nuclear device from the heroes within a building. One thing to note is the heroes will not know what room and floor the bomb will be in. The odds are really stacked against the heroes, Kirishima said. Yes, they are, but heroes are always up against the odds. This will teach you how to engage the villains who are smart and hide their crimes, and to push through the odds. That is what it means to be plus ultra. He looked down on them, the radiant smile on his face. Any more questions? Then let's draw the lots. Izuku, to his mortification, ended up with Uraraka, who jumped in excitement. He was thankful to whoever made sure her assets were kept in place. He would have had a slide if they didn't. Uraraka and Midoriya, you are the heroes. All Might rummaged around the other box. He pulled out a ball. You will be facing Team C, Todoroki and Bakugo. Izuku dared to look at Kaken. He was glaring at him, as usual, but he didn't have the bloodthirsty grin Izuku thought he would have. Instead, he walked by without a word, followed by Todoroki, who didn't even glance in their direction. They're pretty intimidating, right, Midoriya-kun? Uraraka was shaking a little. He only hummed in response, looking at Kaken's back as he entered the building. They would be having their confrontations sooner than he thought. A few minutes later, Izuku and Uraraka were planning their retrieval of the bomb. Thankfully, he was in thinking mode, so talking to her came easy. There was an objective to focus on, rather than her bodysuit. Hey, Midoriya-kun, I've heard Bakugo-kun call you Deku. Do you two know each other? He looked down. We've known each other since we were kids. Our mums know each other, so that always put us together. They were good friends at the start. Kaken was amazing. He lead us all in heroes and villains, and he was one of the first to get a quirk in the class. He learned kanji pretty quick too, that's where I got the name Deku. Useless. He expected her to show him pity, something he didn't want. Instead, she grasped his hand. Useless? Really? I thought he meant Deku as in you can do it. It suits you a lot better. At least, that's what I think of your Deku. His hand felt like it was on fire. So was his face. Then you can call me Deku too. He squoze his eyes shut. Okay then, Deku-kun. He opened his eyes and looked into hers. She was smiling, and her chocolatey eyes were kind. He looked at their hands. So did she. Quickly they separated, faces red. W should think of an entrance strategy. He stuttered. Why yes we should. They gave each other a few seconds to cool off. I'll go through the front door, he said. Kaken will come looking for me. I know he will. We have a score to settle. Uraraka nodded knowingly. A fated battle between men. Kind of. It was a long time coming. I want you to float around the building and try to find the room with the bomb in it. What if it's not by any windows? I'll still be searching the indoor rooms. According to the plans, there are 8 rooms per floor, 4 by windows, 4 inside. I'll check them whilst hiding from Kaken. We'll keep each other updated. Okay, she said, there's just one thing. What about Todoroki-kun? Izuku put a hand to his chin. I'm not sure. We don't know exactly what his quirk does, or what its limits are. All I can guess is that he'll be forced to defend. Kaken won't sit around. I'd try to sneak around him, or at least stay out of sight, and I'll try to meet up with you. She nodded. Hero team begin. Katsuki set for the door. Where are you going? He didn't look back. I'm going to beat the sheet out of Deku, and you ain't gonna stop me, half-half. Katsuki heard a sigh before he left the room. Nothing was going to get in the way of his fight with Deku. Not even that floaty girl he was with. He would settle the score once and for all and show Deku that he really was useless. It was a maze inside. Corridor after corridor of dark concrete that left little room to move. If Kaken caught him, there would be no room to avoid his explosions. That was why Izuku had to be quiet and careful until they found the bomb. Nothing on the ground floor. Uraraka's voice was so close. I didn't find anything either. Moving up one. He just finished checking a room when he heard the sound of boots scraping against the floor. Deku. I shot through him. Turned. Kaken was hard to see under the dim light, but the tiny pops on his hands illuminated his face. His teeth were bared and his eyes were glowing. Izuku ran. Don't you run away from me, Deku. He felt the heat of an explosion as he rounded the corner. Deku. Deku-kun. Did Bakugo-kun find you? He pressed his earpiece. Yeah. You found the bomb yet? Another explosion. No, not yet, but I'll keep looking. A wall next to him exploded. As rock peppered him, Izuku was grabbed and thrown to the floor. He bounced off the concrete and managed to right himself in time to duck another explosion. It was then, through the smoke, Izuku saw Kaken's right cross. Remembering the counter he wrote in his book, Izuku closed the distance, grabbed Kaken's arm and threw him over his shoulder. There was no time to see its effectiveness as the world lit up in front of his face. The next thing he knew, he was in another room, broken concrete covering him. Kaken's form was silhouetted by the hole in the wall, the hole Izuku's body made when he flew through it. At least the bomb wasn't in the room. That was a nice trick there, Deku. But it won't happen again. Now stand up and fight. Izuku barely managed to raise his arms before he was blown back again, right through another wall. Thankfully his quirk made him extra durable, although there was a little sting on the back of his head. If he was another person, he would be knocked cold already. Or dead. He got up and ran again, Kaken shouting behind him. At least he was giving away his position. He wondered how much time they had left as he sprinted up the next set of stairs. Deku, I found the bomb. She was on the 3rd floor, digging her fingers into the grooves between the bricks. She was floating a circle around the floor when she saw a flash of red. She pulled herself back, taking cover away from the window. Deku, I found the bomb. She said into her earpiece. Where is it? He replied. Pulling out the blueprints tucked between her belt, she scanned the 3rd floor. Room 7. And Todoroki-kun? She peered through the window again and saw him leaning against the huge bomb. He's just standing there. It was intimidating. It was like he didn't care. Try to sneak in behind him. The windows opened from the outside. There was an explosion. Just keep in touch. The last thing she heard was Bakugo shouting before the line cut off. She was worried, but she knew Deku could pull through. He was too strong to be beaten so easily. Right now, though, she had an infiltration to do. Lowering herself below the widows, she crawled around the building until she was behind Todoroki. She took another look before she carefully opened the window, making sure that he wasn't paying attention. Slowly, keeping her eyes on him, she put her feet through the window and slid her way through. Then, a few centimeters off the floor, she released and landed with a crunch. She cringed. Todoroki turned to her. So you came through the window? That's why I iced the floor. Ochako looked down and saw ice lining the edge of the room. I'm sorry, Uraraka-san. I'll make this quick. She saw the capture tape dangle from his hand. Quicker than she could blink, a path of ice shot out from Todoroki's right foot and encased her feet. She pressed her earpiece. Deku-kun, I'm trapped. Todoroki-kun is coming for me. Don't worry about it. Deku grunted. I'm in position. Make yourself weightless. She closed her eyes and pressed her fingers together. Deku! How did Kakin keep finding him? Why are you running, Deku? You said you wouldn't take my sheet anymore, so what the hell are you doing? Izuku looked over his shoulder and saw Kakin propelling himself through the air, gaining on him. Izuku was going to get caught. When he was in range, Kakin's arm went for another swing. Izuku stopped, stood his ground, and went for the same maneuver again. At the last second, Kakin pulled his arm back, instead throwing a left that connected with Izuku's face. The force made him stumble back, but he managed to keep his legs in time for an explosion to his side. Something massive struck his gut and winded him. As Izuku coughed on the floor, Kakin stood over him, his hand raised. It was shaking. Why aren't you fighting back, Deku? You looking down on me again? Was all that sheet you said a lie? He kicked Izuku's face. Was it? Kick to the stomach. No, Izuku said through his teeth. Then why are you holding back? We all saw what you did in the tests yesterday. You even took my #1 spot in the entrance exams. So why are you FNG around? Izuku pushed himself up on shaky arms. Blood was dripping from his forehead, running down his face. Because, ever since that day, I'm not going to let you bully me anymore, Kakin. They were playing in the park like usual during the summer. Once again, they were following Kakin around, obeying his orders like the sidekicks they were. Once again, Kakin took the game too far and went to town on one of their classmates who he deemed the villain for the day. Once again, Izuku stepped in to take the hits in the kid's place. He could take them. Except this time, he was thinking about what his counselor said, that he should try to do different things, try to change what made him feel bad or nervous. Kakin made him feel both, so he would change it. Kakin looked confused. What was that, Deku? I said I don't like you bullying me. I want you to stop. His fists were clenched, but his knees were shaking. Kakin's face twisted. He cracked his knuckles like those guys on TV did. Make me death. You're useless for a reason. Izuku didn't know what happened next. It went too fast. All he felt was his collar being grabbed and he didn't want that to happen. So he grabbed it. Kakin screamed and fell to the floor, holding his left hand. He was crying, clenching his jaw to not let any screams out. Katsuki, are you okay? The other kids crowded around. When Kakin let go of his hand, people flinched back, screaming. Someone get an adult. That looks bad. His fingers were bent in ways they shouldn't have. His thumb was snapped halfway back and the look of sheer pain on his face made Izuku sick. It was like a nightmare. As the kids around them went back and forth, running for help and talking between themselves, Izuku and Kakin were still. Ever since that day, Izuku got to his feet. He was in one of the window rooms just like he planned. Ever since that day, I didn't want to use my quirk on anyone ever again. That's why even though you hit me, stole my shoes, burned my notes, and called me names, I never hit back. He curled his fist. I didn't want to see that look on your face again. Kakin readied himself as Izuku put up his own guard. I've been running because I needed to be sure that I'm at the right strength. All this time I've been on Usagi-chan level. I needed to find a balance. Now I know what level I need to beat you with. Kaken growled. You're not even going all out on me? I'm sorry, Kaken, but you can't take my 100%. Just like all those years ago, Kaken's face twisted into pure fury. His hands exploded without control. The F, did you just say? He raised his arm, pointing it forward like a cannon. If you won't take me seriously... His finger hooked around a hoop. It was then Izuku figured out that the grenade gauntlets weren't just for show. Then I'll make you. Deku and I'm trapped. Todoroki-kun is coming for me. A glow came from the barrel of the cannon. Don't worry about it, I'm in position. Make yourself weightless. The pin was pulled. Die, Deku. Izuku let out a breath and moved. He sprinted low as the explosion seared overhead. Within a second he was beneath Kaken, looking at his shocked face. Deku. He clenched a fist. Sorry, Kaken. He uppercut Kaken's stomach. The force launched the boy through the ceiling as Izuku followed him with a jump. They were right where he planned, under the room of the bomb. Turning in the air, he saw Todoroki stumble back, covering his eyes. Uraraka was next to him. Izuku reached towards her and she grabbed his hand. As gently as he could at his current strength, he threw her towards the bomb. Ice raced towards her, spiking from the ground, but it was too late. She reached the bomb and hugged it. Hero team, victory. Then gravity caught up to them. Izuku was the first to land back on the lower floor, quickly followed by Kaken. On instinct, Izuku caught him before he hit the floor. Kaken pushed himself out of Izuku's grip. Get the F away from me, Deku. Kaken. I don't want to hear it. They stayed in silence until the Metabots came. Must you always be so reckless? Recovery Girl was fussing over him while he sat in a chair. He was sure she would have smacked him in the back of the head if he didn't have an injury there. Apparently there were only so many walls he could break through before they broke him. I made sure to let your mother know about your condition, with a picture to go with it. Oh no. And those bruises you gave Bakugo-kun were huge. They both looked like they went through the ringer. Kaken went away with massive bruises on his stomach and back, as well as a small injury on his head. Izuku, on the other hand, had a large cut on his forehead from when Kaken kicked him, a laceration on the back of his head, several bruises, burned skin, and some of his hair singed off when he dodged Kaken's cannon. If this was any other time, I would scold you for not controlling your quirk. But today I'll congratulate you. He looked at her, surprised. As much as it annoys me with how many people get wheeled into here, the purpose of the school is to train you. You won't learn anything by being handheld. She finished up the stitching on his head. That being said, she flicked his ear, I better not see you around here anytime soon. Am I understood? He nodded, cradling his ear. Absolutely. Good. Now head on home. Your mother will be worried. Okay, he said, I hope you'll be around this weekend. Mum's making a stew. I'll try my best, Recovery Girl replied. Oh, your friends dropped by earlier and told me they had to head home. They wished you well. Izuku smiled before leaving. As he was walking along the corridor, he looked out the windows to watch the setting sun. There, heading towards the entrance of UA, was Kaken. His head was low, and he had a slight limp. Izuku had to know if he was okay, so he rushed his way outside. Kaken, he shouted. The boy stopped. What do you want, Deku? His voice was strange. The growl that lay in the back of all his words was gone. Are you okay, Kaken? Deku. Kaken turned and Izuku gasped. Tears were rolling down his cheeks and his ever-present scowl was twitching. I'll beat you one day, Deku. I'll push you to the point where you'll take me seriously. I'll take you down at your full power, so you can know that you're just a pebble on my path. I'll become number one, Deku. Kaken. So stop looking at me with those eyes, Deku, or else I'll tear them out. Kaken turned. Idiot. Shithead. Useless. He yelled as he stomped away. Even though he was a little intimidated at the challenge, Izuku smiled. He finally felt equal with Kaken. It made him feel lighter. He could finally leave that day behind. Danger. His instincts screamed the word. There was a dark aura in the air that pressed his skeletal frame, pushing him closer to his demise. Fighting his body, he reached for the door handle and gave it a twist. His hopes of it being locked were shattered as it swung open. There, in the center of the room, lay the source of the maleficent aura, raw killing intent. Yagi Tashinori. It was too late for him to flee. You are brave coming here. Or foolish. The chair turned and the creator of the nightmare came to light. Her smallness and old age did nothing to her sharp glare. She got off the chair and stomped to him, cane tapping on the floor. Tell me, Yagi, she said, just what were you thinking? Her cane whacked his head. Ow. Don't you awe me, mister. That's only a taste of what those kids went through. She hit his shin next. He hissed and hopped on his foot, cradling his left leg. Shizenji continued. I can't believe you were so irresponsible. Bakugo-kun was black and blue, and don't get me started on Midoriya-kun. He hung his head. I'm sorry. She poked his chest. Sorry doesn't cut it. You're a teacher now and these kids are under your care. You can't let them do this to themselves, successor or not. She was right. The whole fight Tashinori was gripping the microphone, ready to call an end to the fight. Bakugo was being brutal, even if Midoriya had been holding his own at the very start. When the first specks of blood showed, the safety regulations that had been drilled into him by Nezu and Shizenji were blaring in his head. It was All Might who silenced them. They need this, he told Tashinori. Hero work won't cut them any slack. The others need to see this too, to put the pressure on them, to show them what is expected of them. Especially him. He argued back that they were just children, that they had time to grow, but he wasn't in charge at that point. The hero side of him had taken over and he was forced to watch as his son was battered until he clenched the victory. Indeed, they had learned a lesson that day, they all did, to never give up, that the fight was never over until the end. The other teams had done well afterwards, but he forgot to impart the lesson he should have done, combat in close quarters. He forgot that before he was the powerhouse that was All Might, he was a student too. His skills weren't naturally born or given to him by one for all, they were learnt, ingrained into him through his teacher and his time at UA. Being able to handle any situation in seconds had numbed him of all the nuances of hero work. It seemed he would be learning with the children. You're right, Shizenji-san. I'm sorry. Searched his eyes. You're lucky Nezu has that sadistic streak in him. Any normal principal and you'd be called in. I know. The shame was evident in his voice. She touched his arm, her voice gentler. I know you're not used to this, but you have to remember that these kids aren't heroes. Not yet. Even Midoriya-kun has his limits, no matter what he has to live up to. Tashinori thought of the boy, of how much he shared with his mother. Midoriya looked nothing him. Although he should be thankful for that, someone with a similar quirk and features to him would be sure to raise questions. But he couldn't help but think, if he found out, how would he react? Do you plan on telling him? Would he? Maybe one day. He needs to learn of one for all at the very least. For now, I'm going to take your advice and leave it be. He's struggling enough as it is. Although Tashinori saw his conviction in the mock battle, both before and after the boy was a nervous wreck. It wasn't obvious until you looked at his eyes. They were always shifting, never locking onto something for more than a second before flitting away. Human contact made him flinch too. Indeed, Midoriya Izuku had a long way to go before he was ready for the truth. Shizenji chuckled. Well, at least you're taking one piece of my advice seriously. He laughed himself. I'm going to head home now, Shizenji-san. He bowed. She nodded back. Goodbye, Tashinori-kun. Don't forget to take your tablets. I will. Not like he could forget. At least he was back to Tashinori-kun, rather than Yagi. He was lucky at her quick turnaround. God knew how long she could keep a grudge for. Oh my goodness. Izuku, my baby, what happened? Izuku was smothered as soon as he got home. Even Usagi-chan was hopping at his leg. His mother pulled back and held him by his cheeks, turning his head left and right. Her worried frown grew. What are they putting you through in that school? It's fine, he said through mushed cheeks. It was just hero training. I had to fight Kaken and... Katsuki-chan. Inko stepped back and went for the phone hanging on the wall. I'll call them right now. Izuku held her back. No, it's fine. I hurt Kaken pretty bad too. She put the phone back, surprised. We had to do a mock battle between heroes and villains. Kaken knocked me around, but I beat him. I won. He looked her in the eyes. So there's no need to call. I already sorted it on my own. Her eyes welled with tears. Izuku. She crushed him in a hug. Izuku. My baby's growing up. Izuku blushed. Please? Chio-san patched you up well though, right? Why yeah, I can't even feel it anymore. She gave him another once-over. If you say so. She released him. He bent down and picked up Usagi-chan, the rabbit immediately becoming comfortable in his arms. He tickled the spot between her ears that he knew she loved. I'm going to put dinner on, Izuku. Just sit down and take it easy. Will do. There was no homework to do after all. Maybe he could update his entry on Uraraka. He unzipped his bag and pulled out his hero notebook number 13, flipping it onto the most recent page. It briefly highlighted Uraraka's quirk and abilities with it. He added a couple of bullet points about her levitation and included some applications that he would expand on at a later date. All that was left was a drawing to accompany it. Izuku didn't have a photographic memory, but his attention to detail kept the most important bits. This helped with his sketches, since he could fill in the proportions around the critical parts. As his pencil skimmed the paper, Uraraka's smiling face came into shape. Her ever-present blush on her rounded cheeks, her smile, her chestnut hair. He kept the visor out of her uniform so that her eyes shone through. He smiled as he was brought back to before the battle, when she held his hand and blew through years of name-calling in an instant. Oh, who's that? His pencil snapped in his hand. She's cute. Is she someone you know? Izuku blushed. His mother knew he write notes on anybody he could. Soon his entire class would be in notebooks. Why was she so interested in this one? Oh, I see. She's a friend. Usagi-chan hopped out of his arms. I didn't say she was anything else. Why you implied it? I didn't imply anything, Izuku. Why are you getting so defensive? Because you're giving me that look. What look? That one. Mao, Izuku, you're paranoid. You're trying really hard to hide your girlfriend. She's not my girlfriend. Sure. Mum. Could you set the table? Dinner's ready. How Izuku didn't burst into flames that night, he never knew. The word had been spread all over the country that All Might was teaching at UA, and the vultures of the press had descended. The sight of them shoving a microphone at any student who went in made Izuku shake. He wasn't good with crowds, and he didn't want to be on camera. He'd just have to give a lame enough response that they would leave it out the news. Deku-kun. It was strange to hear his nickname spoken without a snarl and a curse. Uraraka came up beside him. Good morning, Uraraka-san. His mother's teasing voice floated through his head and he blushed. Uraraka smiled. I can't believe how many people are here. I'm super nervous. Do we answer them or just keep walking? It'd be rude if we didn't. He replied. Regardless, they continued. As soon as they got to the gate, all eyes were on them. A woman with a black ponytail stepped up to them, microphone in hand. What is All Might like as a tutor? Both Izuku and Uraraka leaned back. The woman sounded hysterical. Ano. Uraraka shuffled from side to side. He's very muscular. Nice conviction, Uraraka-sen. He had to match it. He's cool. The reporters said nothing. In fact, they seemed a little deflated. Thanks, I guess, the woman said. They took the opportunity to leave. Bakugo's shouts could be heard as they entered the school. Mostly everyone was there when they got to class. Tokoyami, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu were sat quietly in the corner as Ashido, Kaminari, Kirishima, and Azui crowded around a desk, chatting. Let's go talk to the others, Deku-kun, Uraraka said, dragging him by the arm. Uraraka-san. They caught the attention of Ashido. Oh hey Midori. You look like you've been dragged through a hedge backwards. And Midori? Another nickname. Yeah. I mean, I called you Green Dude before. Might as well shorten it to green. You're making him red, Ashido-chan, Azui croaked, pointing at him. Get nervous easily, don't you, Midoriya-kun? Why was she so blunt? An arm hooked around his neck. Like hell he does. Kaminari said, pulling Izuku closer. This guy is manly. You don't get nervous, right, buddy? They talked for a little longer, moving on to the mock battles the day before. Of course, Uraraka and himself were showered with compliments, only Azui saying that Izuku was reckless and foolish with his plan. Kaminari objected to that, saying, an all-out guy like myself understands what Midoriya was doing. It was at that point Jiro walked past and quipped, that's the only thing you understand, Kaminari. He was about to retort when Aizawa walked in. No words were needed as they went to their seats, waiting for the day's trial. I know this seems a little rushed, but it's time for you to pick a class president. The class erupted. In the cacophony of shouts and raised hands, Aizawa merely watched, reaching for his sleeping bag. It was Ida who saved the class, proposing a voting system, the conclusion of which brought Izuku's nightmares to reality. Right, so that makes Midoriya class president, with Yaoyorozu as vice president. Yaoyorozu bowed beside him while he was frozen on the spot. He wouldn't have been up there if it weren't for her dragging him up. Kaken was swearing up a storm, Uraraka was whistling, and Ashido was giving him a thumbs up. Ida was twitching in his seat. Was the right choice, the right choice, the right choice? You can sit down now. We'll go over your battle results. After they were sat, and Izuku's heartbeat had slowed, Aizawa continued. Bakugo, you're too reckless. Not only did you destroy your own hideout, you let your anger and bravado blind you. Nevertheless, you're good. Just work on your focus. It was a testament to Aizawa's power as a teacher that he could get away with criticizing Kaken. If they were still in middle school, the teacher would be cowering in fear after being threatened. Midoriya, your plan was clever, but poorly executed. There were several other ways you could have reached the objective, such as Uraraka floating you both to the top and working your way down. Also, the damage you took was inexcusable. Just because you can get hit, doesn't mean you should. Avoiding an attack is always better than taking it. Izuku nodded. He couldn't just keep taking hits anymore. Punches on the playground were manageable, but in the world of heroes and villains, people were out to hurt him or kill him. He had a lot to learn before he was ready. Aizawa was enjoying his sandwich in the staff room. It was delivered to the school in the morning with a little greeting card that had a crappy joke in it. It wasn't the first time she'd done something like this. The first few times he opened up boxes that blew confetti in his face. He never bothered getting in touch with her to complain, it's what she wanted. One day, however, the box was a nicely made bento. Ever since then he got lunches of different types. It didn't get her a thanks when they met, he had a reputation to maintain, and she would fly off the handle if she knew she'd gotten to him. Instead, he backed off on the insults a bit and actually had some conversations with her. She was a crappy comedian and she was far too loud for his liking, but she was one hell of a cook. He went for another bite when the alarm blared. Aizawa threw down his sandwich and put on his goggles, the rest of the faculty arming themselves as well. Someone had gotten in the school. Netza gave them sections to investigate as he kept his eye on the cameras. Whoever they were, they came from the front of the school. As Aizawa ran for the front wall, he noticed the students were panicking. He cursed. They could end up trampling each other. As much as he wanted to help, he had a job to do. The other teachers could handle the students. The last thing he saw was Ida jetting himself through the air. When Aizawa got to the breach, his eye twitched. Reporters. Reporters. There could be a villain hidden amongst them and he'd never know. Oi, Udaman rats. He activated his quirk and hovered his capture gear. Line up against that wall. The principal will be down soon to ask you some questions. They obeyed him immediately. Aizawa was glad his intimidating edge hadn't faded. It's not our fault. A woman with a microphone said, there was a hole in the barrier. And you guys were holding out on us. We just had to take a look. You're like flies to sheet. Tell me where the breach is. Izuku was definitely living the dream. So was Uraraka, judging by how she was hopping from foot to foot. In front of them was Space Hero 13, and they were standing in the USJ. Izuku has always wanted to visit, but the tickets were quite expensive. Now they could use it for training. I'm sure you are all aware of my quirk, Black Hole, he said. Yes, it has saved many lives in rescue situations. Ida exclaimed. Indeed it has, but my quirk is easily one that can kill. Some of you have quirks like that, don't you? Izuku's jaw clenched. In this world of regulated quirks it might not seem that way, but the fact is some people have quirks that can easily kill with the wrong step. With Aizawa-san's test, you learn the limits of your quirk and how to adapt to them. With All Might-san's combat training, you learnt what it's like to use your quirk against others and the danger that brings. With me, I hope that you learn your quirks are there to save lives, not to harm others with. That is why you are at UA, to learn how to help people and become the best heroes you can be. Thank you for listening. It was a good speech which everyone cheered to. For Izuku, he found that he wasn't the only one who struggled with his quirk. All those years of wallowing in self-pity, resigning himself to a lonely existence. All the while 13 was dealing with his destructive power and turning it into the greatest tool for saving people in disasters. Izuku really was pathetic. Alright, let's start. Why? Aizawa was cut off. Electricity arced around the dome, cutting out the lights. The fountain started spurting erratically as something in the air shifted. Aizawa turned and Izuku saw for the first time a different expression on his teacher's face. Shock. The sight put Izuku on edge. 13. Protect the students. A purple miasma spread across the courtyard. Hey, is this like the entrance test? Has the training already started? Kirishima asked. One by one, figures of all shapes and sizes emerged from the... Who are they? He said nervously. Izuku stepped to take a closer look. Stay back. Aizawa bit. He pulled his goggles up. Those are villains. Villains? Here. A tremor went through the class. Izuku was shaking. As the villains kept coming, a true monster appeared. It stood meters above the rest and was jet black. It followed behind a man who was covered in hands. He raised his arms. Everyone, let the game begin. Aizawa leapt.